Did you hear that 91% of guys that use Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant recommend it? Dove Men Plus Care user Rob said that it's like the Hoover Dam, but for his armpits. Well, if it can hold back that much sweat, Rob, it must be good. Pick up some new Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant for yourself at your local retailer.
It's Thursday. Off we go toward the weekend. And on the menu this morning, Giancarlo goes yard again. Football tonight with an absolutely terrible game. And we need to have another discussion about safety, only this time it's not football players, it's baseball fans. Golic, all of that, and a whole lot more on the menu today.
Certainly a ton of sports to talk about, but that issue of fan safety rears its ugly head again with a young, very, very little girl who got hit in the face with a foul ball. Just, we've talked about this before, the netting, where it's put up, how it's put up, is it enough? And what a tough scene at the Yankee game. And you could see the anguish on the player's face when this all happened. That was tough to see and tough to watch. And you just hope everything's okay with the little girl.
Absolutely. We will hear from several people directly involved in that, including Rob Manfred, who is, I suppose, in this particular case, indirectly involved, but most significantly involved, because the decision is going to have to be made as to whether or not they do something that I know they don't want to do, and I understand why they don't want to do it. But the reality is, well, I'm going to make a ridiculous analogy here, but this whole idea of court storming and fans running onto a football field to tear down the goalposts and everything, I love it. I want people to be able to do it because it's fun. But somewhere along the line, someone has to point out, or someone has to tell me, how many people are getting hurt doing this? What are the chances people are going to get hurt? And when does it stop being worth it? I mean, when Northwestern beat Indiana in 1987, I remember it like it was yesterday, or January of 88. They were the defending champs from 87. I believe to this day I was the first person who made it out onto the court, and I was jumping around, and it was one of the great times of my sports life. And I wasn't afraid for my safety or anything else like that. But if people are getting hurt in these things, and especially at football, when they're tearing down goalposts and the thing is collapsing, then you just can't do it.
Can't do it.
I mean, you don't want to put netting all across the baseball field because you want to be as close to the game as you can. But if 4-year-olds are getting hit in the face, you have to really consider it.
Well, you do, and even adults there, because we're in an era where there are a lot of people looking down at their phone. And you could sit there and say, well, that's their fault. They're sitting in those seats. They need to look up. But, tell that to a team or to Major League Baseball when something horrible happens. If you say, well, if they get serious, well, it's their own fault they were looking at their phone. It doesn't fly too far. I mean, even though we understand the concept of that, when you're in that particular situation, it just doesn't seem as kosher to say.
Yeah.
Well, that's their own fault, if they're sitting there in the hospital getting all stitched up because they were looking at their phone. You don't go to a game as a fan and the end result is you getting hurt. Now, sometimes things happen. We get that. But as far as running on the field, storming a court, it's supposed to be fun. But is it worth somebody getting hurt? No, I like it as well. I think it's cool. But as soon as you get that injury, it's like, okay, we can't do this. We're there for your entertainment if you have a good time, but for no one to get hurt, even though, as they say, it would ruin it for everybody else. Because I don't think it happens often that people get that hurt. But it takes once, right?
Yeah, that's
not supposed to happen.
We have this look, if you go back and check my timeline and in the conversations that we've had, we've talked about this forever.
Yeah.
And I've been saying forever, baseball has to do this. And the time to have the conversation is not when the 4-year-old girl gets hit in the face. It's before she gets hit in the face. Because you don't want the 4-year-old. It doesn't make it. How many people's fun equals one 4-year-old girl right now in a hospital, and the last we heard from the father was they didn't know if she was going to require surgery or not. On a 4-year-old girl going to a baseball game.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, the math on that doesn't compute. And first and foremost, you're concerned about her. There are HIPAA laws, so we don't really know the details of her injuries, nor do we need to know. It's not our business to know. It's the family's concern, of course. And everyone involved shows all the appropriate amounts of concern. I don't believe Major League Baseball doesn't care. I don't believe that. The players obviously are devastated.
Yeah, you see them. Yeah. You're
so,
right.
So that's one of the big topics of conversation on the menu today. We got the football game. Well, why don't we do off the top? Why am I dancing around off the top?
Do it.
We can just do off the top. Here we go. Let's start with Chris Sale, Mike. Is he the American League Cy Young winner? Is Corey Kluber the American League Cy Young winner? Chris Sale keeps just mowing him down. He's got 300 strikeouts.
Yeah, he struck out a final batter he faced in Baltimore last night, giving him 13 strikeouts a night, 300 for the season. He reached 300 strikeouts in a season, third in the third fewest innings. Only 2 pitchers. And it seems whenever we do a pitcher list Randy Johnson is always on it.
Sure.
And so the fewest innings was Randy Johnson and then Pedro Martinez and then Chris Sale. So he also joins, Sale does, Randy Johnson, Nolan Ryan twice, and Steve Carlton as the only players who have 300 strikeouts in their first season with a new team. So, yeah, I mean, I think he is a tick ahead of Corey Kluber. Maybe I just say a tick because I'd like to see Kluber win it, but he's been an absolute monster.
Kluber's ERA is better.
Yeah.
They have the same number of wins. I'm looking at their numbers right here.
Both have 17 wins. Kluber's ERA is a little bit better.
Not a little bit.
Well, yeah, you're right. 275, 235. And strikeouts, it's a difference of 48. Sale has 48 more than Kluber. I'd give it to Kluber.
Yeah, look, you're a Cleveland guy.
Yeah,
It's going to be a very interesting vote. I'd like to see what someone like Buster thinks about who's going to win that. Meanwhile, Giancarlo Stanton does it again. His second home run, Golic, in the last 3 days.
Yep, his 56th home run of the year. So he's on pace now for 59. He has 10 games left. Do we think he can do it? Remember, he talked at 61 as being the real record in his mind, even though we know the real record is 73. He needs 4 more to join the 60 home run club, something done just 8 times in league history. He's actually ahead
and only twice legitimately.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's actually ahead of the pace of Sammy Sosa in 2001 and Babe Ruth in 1927, who at this point in their season had 54 home runs, or Stanton has 56. A couple other guys.
Say that again. He's ahead of the pace that Babe Ruth was on in 1927.
1927.
Probably the most famous baseball season ever played.
And then a couple of guys close to 60 home runs. In 2002, A-Rod had 55 home runs with 14 games left. He ended up only hitting 2 more. Had 57 for the season. And in 2006, Ryan Howard had 56 home runs with 21 games left, but he only hit 2 more after that. So, again, Stanton has 10 games left and is sitting at 56.
I like that they now calculate the exit velocity.
Oh, yeah, isn't that great? Yeah.
He left the yard at almost 117 miles an hour. He hit the ball 117 miles an hour.
Doesn't Judge have the highest one this year, like 121, I think?
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I just like that they can calculate that.
True.
That's really remarkable.
Off the top.
All right, the Rams and the 49ers tonight on Thursday Night Football.
You laugh at that. I like what the Rams are doing, and certainly the 49ers aren't where they want to be right now. They still have they don't have their quarterback of the future right now.
They haven't scored a touchdown this season.
You know what? You look at it one way, I look at it another. I look at where is the team going to go. Now, the biggest difference to me is the 49ers don't have their quarterback. I like what I'm seeing out of the Rams with Jared Goff coming along. Gurley ran well, the defense and what they can do. I'm actually looking forward to the game, and you have a couple of coaches who haven't been long since they could go to a bar. Their one is 31 years old. That's Sean McVay. Kyle Shanahan is 37 years old. Combined their days old, it's the third youngest head coaching matchup, but there's only one coaching matchup ahead of it because it was 2 times they played.
Don't tell me.
It was 1992.
So that's not John Gruden. I was going to guess
not John Gruden. It is part of a very famous coaching, one of the most famous coaches of all time, but it's not him.
David Shula.
And?
Who would have been another really young coach then?
Really, really young. Crazy special teamer, coach that loved to run up and down the field.
Was it Bill Cowher?
Bill Cowher.
Wow.
Bill Cowher and Dave Shula.
So he was that young? I didn't realize he was that young.
They were the youngest pair, and twice they face each other. Now this is the third youngest pair. How about this, though? In the last 22 games.
This is the stat of the day.
This is it. In the last 22 games, the 49ers are 3-0 against the Rams. And 0-19 against everybody else. They have the Rams number.
That's a remarkable statistic.
Yeah, it really is.
Look, am I intrigued by what the Rams are doing now?
Yes,
with Jared Goff and Gurley's playing better and Cooper Kupp and all the other. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, they are. They've got Donald now. The 49ers are a team they're where the Jets are.
Yeah, I mean,
at the embryonic stage of building.
Mm-hmm.
And all I'm saying is, from a national interest standpoint, they're not a real sexy matchup, right? I mean, you don't have not a real sexy matchup. I'm not suggesting I won't watch it.
Right.
I'll watch it because it's football and you watch football. But
at least the team is playing tonight that the mayor wanted in Los Angeles.
That's right. If it was the
Chargers, that'd be a whole other story.
Eric Garcetti would be doing something else.
Off the top.
Well played. And finally, Jake LaMotta died yesterday, and it's fascinating. Jake LaMotta he was an iconic fighter long before you and I were born.
Yeah.
but not in a way that it lasted. Like when I was a kid, I knew who Sugar Ray Robinson was. Right. I knew who Joe Louis was. There were some boxers that were way before my time that I had heard of. Jake LaMotta was not one of them. And then they made the movie Raging Bull, which is one of the great sports movies of all time.
Robert De Niro, man.
De Niro's brilliant in that, and it's Scorsese and it's Joe Pesci, and it's a great movie. If you've never seen that movie, I have no idea how well it holds up. I haven't seen it in a long time. But I certainly remember loving that movie, and it made LaMotta incredibly famous to generations that would never otherwise.
Because
have
it wasn't the International Boxing Hall of Fame says his record is 83-19-4 with 30 knockouts. That's not going to be too memorable to people, but. He gave Sugar Ray Robinson his first loss in 43, and a bad part of it was the mob kept trying to get him to fix fights, and he kept not doing that. And I think it was in 1947, he did fix a fight and got suspended for that.
And he got a title shot for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the history of boxing is loaded with all this kind of stuff.
And I love the ancillary things. Like, he got into boxing because he tried to go into the military, and he was rejected because of a medical condition. So he boxed.
Huh.
I mean, you always think of the path of somebody. What if he got into the military? Where would anything, where would it have gone? But he got rejected for a medical condition and got into boxing. And he was a guy known for just letting the other guy throw haymakers at him so he could get in close enough to then beat the guy up. And it was really incredible.
The legendary moment in that movie when Robinson just annihilates him and they stop the fight, and he's basically out on his feet, but he will not go down. He will not go down. And he walks over to the center of the ring and he says, "You never got me down, Ray. You never got me down." And you get chills remembering it if you've seen the movie. It's a brilliant movie, and again,
it's one of those things where he's not obviously anywhere near the greatest in that conversation, but certainly the name because of the movie. It's just a fun one for the younger generation again to Google. Jake LaMotta, and kind of read about it, and it's a pretty interesting history.
All right, that's
95 by the way, 95 years old.
The beating that he took in the ring on a regular basis, and he lives to be 95 is remarkable. And by the way, Jeremy Schaap, who did a magnificent obit that we just watched on SportsCenter, and that we're going to cut down and play for you on TV later this morning, is really, really interesting stuff. It points out that he had a longtime fiance. Yeah, he was 95. I guess they weren't rushing into anything.
Well, they had time.
95 years old, a longtime fiance. Anyway, R.I.P. Jake LaMotta. It was, and because of the movie, he developed a whole other level of fame.
Dude went into
coming back again in the 80s.
Retired in 54, went into acting and stand-up comedy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's
remember
just
at the
awesome.
end of that's how the movie begins and ends with De Niro, who gained like 50 or 60 pounds to play the part, and him smashing his head into the wall in the prison. It's a tremendous movie. But you don't want to remember the man today because they made a movie about his life. He was a great fighter in his day and legendarily fought Ray Robinson, who, if you were to ask someone like Max Kellerman or Brian Kenny or someone who knows much more about boxing than the two of us put together, I think the immediate answer to the question, who's the greatest boxer that ever lived, the answer is Ray Robinson. I believe that's the answer.
And LaMotta gave him his
LaMotta fought him 6 times.
Yeah, gave him his first loss in 43. Yeah.
All right, that's what everyone's talking about. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. So a 4-year-old girl gets hit in the face with a screaming foul ball at Yankee Stadium yesterday. And I've told this story before. I've only one time in my life sat in seats like that at a baseball game. When I was a kid growing up, we went to the Yankee games all the time with my dad, and we sat all the way upstairs. And then these days, when I go to games with my kids, we don't sit down nearby the field or anything like that. But one time in Chicago, where at least at this point they had no netting of any kind, we were sitting up the third base line. The Cubs gave us tickets. States was all excited to be back and take the kids to Wrigley Field. And we were sitting quite near the field up the first base line. And there was a line drive that was hit like near us, not close enough that it was going to hit us. But at that point, I realized, holy smoke, we are directly in harm's way. And my kids were little at that point, so I was vigilant. I mean, I moved so that I was sitting on this side of them, the home plate side of them. And I was as focused on that game as I've ever been on a game in my life. You don't realize just how much these balls are screaming at you and how close you are to it until you're
we see it all the time.
There.
We see them hit into the stands all the time, and the liners, and people put a hand up or something to block it, and they'll deflect it. I'm sure it stings the hand and all that. But, that's a moving baseball that unfortunately finds a bad mark every now and then, and that's exactly what happened yesterday. The face of a 4-year-old girl. I mean, the players, you just see it on their faces, the devastation there, and it brings back, again, this unfortunately is a type of thing that is sometimes the final straw to bring change, because this has been talked about before, the netting going, further down the first and third base line. It's been talked about, but nothing's been done about it. So you wonder if it's going to take that moment, and was this that moment yesterday that says, okay, you know what, that's enough. We have to do something.
Now, this has been talked about a lot. Owners have expressed concerns that additional netting would detract from the experience of their ticket holders in certain premium seats.
Those are expensive seats.
I get that.
Those are expensive seats. I get that as well. And now you're putting the net, and you can obviously see through the net, and that's right behind the plate. But I get what they're saying. All of a sudden you have just a little bit of a barrier in an area where normally you're right there, seeing everything. Now, do I think, and I don't go to a lot of games, so I'm not the one to ask this. It's those there. Would it detract from your experience?
Here's the thing that you've got two separate concerns. You've got the visual impediment that it creates, to whatever degree that is significant. And then there's, for lack of a better word, the psychological impediment that it creates. Like when you're sitting down by the field, you feel like you're right there.
You do? Yeah.
You and I have been on the field.
Yes.
I'd be able to throw out a first pitch and all that kind of stuff. You realize how close you
right
are
there.
to the fans. They're right there.
Yeah.
If there's a net in between you, even if you're still that close, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And they don't want to take that away.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interaction at times between players in the batter's box and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
They don't want that stuff to be lost. And I get it. I understand that. But you can't have 4-year-old girls getting hit in the face with balls either.
Yeah.
You just can't have that.
Yeah.
Here's Todd Frazier, who was on the field and visibly shaken.
It was terrible, shaking up a little bit, and I don't know really what happened. I hope she's all right, but it was just something that I wish never happened. It was tough. It was tough to watch and tough to be a part of, to be honest.
Todd, when you hit a ball like that, do you follow it with your eyes into the stands?
Of course. I mean, even at third base, I watch every foul ball that's hit pretty hard, and you don't see many of them hit anybody, and just very unlucky, man. It was tough.
What went through your mind when you saw something like that?
I thought of my kids. I have 2 kids under 3 years old, and just hope she's all right.
I mean, that is stuff. These guys know how fast and hard the baseball is hit, and as he said, even when he's at third base, he watches them. You watch and you see what happens, and you kind of hope. It's kind of twofold. You're looking, is somebody going to catch it? How are they going to catch it? Who's going to get it? And then, is it going to hit somebody? Because we've seen a bat go into the stands at times as well, and you're like, oh, God, And then when you see it hit somebody, or if you don't, and then you see someone hurt, and then it trickles back down to you. It's a 4-year-old girl. Oh, and she, by the way, got hit in the face with the baseball. You're like, oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. I mean, it's just devastating to the player.
Frazier hit that ball 105 miles an hour. The exit velocity that we were just joking around about gleefully in Giancarlo Stanton's home run was 116 miles an hour. That ball, which hit a little kid in the face, was hit 105 miles an hour. That's 105 miles an hour, like something that basically is as hard as a rock. Being hit directly at you.
Yeah.
And, you're going to blame a 4-year-old if she's not paying such rapt attention to everything that's going on that she might get hit in the face. I mean, this is what's going on. So the answer to this cannot be, well, don't have kids sit down there.
Right.
That's not a good answer.
No, it's not.
That's not the answer that baseball wants. It's not the answer anybody wants. If you're lucky enough to be able to bring a little kid down that close to a seat at a baseball game, you have A, it's going to be a great experience, and B, you have a really good chance of developing a baseball fan for the rest of his or her life. So is the answer, Mike, more? I mean, the only answer to this would be more netting if you're going to do more netting. That's the obvious answer.
Run it down the
question.
first and third base line. That's the.
Would you do it? If you're sitting where Rob Manfred is sitting, would you mandate it? And obviously, he can't do it. Let's bear in mind all these conversations we're having about Roger lately.
That's the owners,
with
the parks.
the NFL.
Yeah,
Rob Manfred can only suggest it.
Right.
He can't go. He can't call up the Steinbrenners or any other.
No,
owners.
because remember, the commissioner is hired by the owners.
Right. I wanted to play you him though. Here's Rob Manfred because he has talked about this many times before. Here's the commissioner of Major League Baseball.
It remains an ongoing discussion in the industry. We gave some guidelines 2 years ago, and what we have done since then is that we have encouraged the individual clubs to engage in a localized process, look at their own stadiums. Every stadium's different, and to try to make a good decision about how far the netting should go in order to promote fan safety. If you look at what's happened, there has been a continuous forward movement in terms of increased netting in stadiums around the leagues, and I expect that process will continue this offseason.
So I would imagine you have to try it, right? I would imagine you have to get to the point where you have to at least do it. Do you do it on a temporary basis? Do you try it, see what it's like, see if it, the results from it? Do you leave it up? I don't know, but I think a situation like this makes you think long and hard about, okay, this is, it's been real. We have seen people get hit before, but there is always that one moment, there's that one moment of, aha, okay, we've gotten by, has this one gone too far? And I think for some people, this is going to be that moment. Is this that moment where it went far enough where owners and or parks are going to make the decision, okay, we need to extend this. It's just we can't afford anything like this happening. Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Joining us now in studio is the one and the only Herm Edwards. Good morning, Herman.
Good morning. It's nice, these comfy chairs.
Like this, huh?
Yeah,
it's
pretty nice. Yeah. You guys should do shows here more often than these chairs right here.
Every now and again we do. This is the GNC Lounge.
Now, are they orange or red, Greeny?
To me, they're red.
To me, they're orange. What are they to you?
They're orange. They remind me when I was in Tampa, and we had old Buccaneer Bruce, and we had to walk him off the gangplank. We got rid of those popsicle uniforms we had. I mean, it's just we actually walked him off the gangplank. And the fans were there. We were changing uniforms. It was a big like, how many people showed up? It was unbelievable. We walked this guy off the plank, and he just, in the uniform just went right over to get him out of here.
Herman Edwards is here. He's got a million great stories. And before we get into all of the football, I did want to get your perspective because, among other things, you are the dad right now of a couple of little ones.
Yes.
The kids are little. They're not as little as 4, but they're young. And you see what happened to the ball game yesterday. And this is not going to be a rant about how baseball doesn't care about the state. I don't think that for 1 second. I think they are weighing two issues here. They're weighing, do we put the nets up all the way out to the foul pole or somewhere out, beyond the dugouts right now, and how much that impedes the experience for others, and how many people are getting hit with balls. But there's something about seeing a 4-year-old getting hit in the face and taken to the hospital, and we can only hope that she will be fine. But there's something about that feels as though it is going to create more conversation. Forgetting anything else, as a dad, what are your thoughts about that?
It was horrifying to watch. It really was. I watched it this morning when you guys were on, and it was like, are you kidding me? And I've been to some ball games, and it's no fault to the players. It's just, when that thing comes off the bat, if you're not paying attention, all of a sudden you're hit. And when a child gets hit like that, boy, it's just, look at the players. I mean, they're all like, everyone gets it. And I don't know why they don't, and I've said this for years, like in hockey, how the glass that just kind of goes across, that just, why don't they just
because they want you to have this experience.
You can still see through it, though.
Yeah, but they like the
they want a touchy-feely. I get it. I get it.
A lot of people were tweeting that in about that, but I would go with the netting, and here's my thought. I would say put the netting up we always talk about when they tweak rules in sports. What do we always say? Well, the players will get used to it. The players will adapt. Well, you know what? The fans will as well. You put the netting up, they'll adapt. They'll learn. Very soon, you won't even realize it's there, and you'll be looking through it because you have game after game, and you'll just become used to it.
But is the glass easier to see through than the net? No.
Oh yeah,
No.
but I think it's you feel more.
You feel more because you can feel the.
blocked
Okay,
off.
I got it.
You can interact. One of the things that you see at ball games all the time, of course, is guys are flipping a ball out to fans, and you lose that.
Well, no, I mean, it depends on how high you put the net. You still throw it over the top of the net.
Yeah, I mean, they're usually,
you can.
they're just sort of
No, I get it, but I mean,
if
you don't really take that completely out of it. You can still get it out there.
Andrea tells me there are a lot of "it's the parents' fault" tweets this morning. I'm not even reading those.
Why is that?
Balls hit 100. Well, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Throw yourself up as a human shield. The balls hit 105 miles an hour.
Gets there.
It's not that
like
easy to react that quickly.
You make a great example, and you make a great point. I can remember going to an arena game in Kansas City, and I took my daughters, and this is when they were younger. They were like 5 and 6, and I'm talking to somebody, visiting with some folks, and the arena ball, they're throwing the ball all over the ball yard, right? And one comes actually at one of my little girls, and I see it out of the corner of my eye because I'm kind of peripheral talking to folks, but I'm watching the ball because I figured something could come, and sure enough, one comes sailing right at her head, and I kind of knocked it down. But are parents responsible? I don't know if they're responsible, but it happens so fast sometimes. Yeah. You just can't see it. It's like, oh, what just happened?
Yeah, I'm not putting that on.
No,
105 miles an hour coming at you, and you're supposed to have the reaction time of a ball player. I mean, it's not going to happen.
All right, that's a conversation that will continue. Let's get to some football with Herman. Here in the GNC Lounge, mix it up with the GNC Buy Two, Get One Free Mix and Match sale. The best thermogenics, vitamins, fish oil, and more from Performix are all Buy Two, Get One Free. The sale ends September 27th, only at GNC. The last game that we saw was the Giants and the Lions. We have Niners-Rams tonight. But the last NFL game was Giants and Lions, and it certainly was an eye-opener. That's 2 weeks, and it's longer than that we've seen this Giant offensive line just look a mess. Some of the schematics just don't seem to be. Whatever they're doing, it clearly isn't working. And I heard Ben McAdoo talking about possibly giving up the play calling, doing something quote-unquote drastic, up to including getting rid of the play calling responsibilities, delegating those to somebody else. You were a head coach. You were a defensive guy. Did you? I'm just trying to remember. Did you call the defensive sets and things like that on the sideline?
I had coordinators, and like you always have conversations with them, obviously, during the course of the game. You're involved in the game plan on both sides of the ball as well as special teams. But I always felt like I wanted to have a pulse of the team. I wanted to feel like I could go anywhere and didn't have to worry about a certain group. I wanted to coach the whole team along with the coaches. So I felt very comfortable with my coordinators. I do know this. Whether he calls the plays or not, it's not so much about the plays. It's really not. It's really about the first thing and the most important thing is how do we protect our quarterback? If you can't do that, it doesn't matter what plays you call.
How do they do it?
Well, in my opinion, they run a lot of 11 personnel, and we know that's one back, one tight end, and that's fine. But here again, when we go back to throw the football, what are we doing to protect the quarterback? Because if he can't function, we can't function. And he's the type of guy, he's not going to change. You're not going to move him out of the pocket and change the platform for where he throws. He wants to throw in the pocket. Okay, with that being said, what do? Do we eliminate 5 out all the time? Do we bring more protectors in? And who cares if they know? We got a pretty good quarterback if we keep him upright and if he's confident throwing the football, because that's what we do. We don't run the ball. I mean, that's secondary for this offense. They're not even trying to run the ball, okay? So let's run it, because it's easy to say, let's go run it. Why? You don't want to run it. Okay. You want to throw it around the yard? Okay, let's throw it around the yard, but let's protect the quarterback with formations.
Mike, how?
Exactly.
How are we doing?
Again, I talked about Ingram, who is not a big blocking tight end. He's 240, but that doesn't mean he can't run his routes attached at times.
Explain what that means.
Attached means if he's lined up right next to Eric Flowers, the left tackle, he's still going to go off for a pass. I'm not asking him to roadblock anybody. It's still in a passing down. But what that does, look at what Ziggy Ansah did. Ziggy Ansah just, when there's no tight end there, he just lines up wide, and it's a straight speed rush. Well, if you have a tight end there who's going off for a pass, nobody jams a tight end on a line anymore, so he's still going to get a release. And I'm not saying do it every play, but now Ziggy, either is he going to go all the way outside of the tight end, to which now he has to take, he's farther away from the quarterback, or If he goes through the tight ends, the tight end goes off for a pass, it's still more in a controlled area and not giving him the freedom. You have a back. Backs can still go out on their routes, but you know what they can do is they can throw a shoulder into the rib of a D end who's rushing up the field. Just slow him down enough. And to me, it seems like, Herm, they're banging their head against the wall saying, this is what we run. Yep. This is our system. It's your job to block that guy. Well, my thought was that it's the coach's job to put your players in the best chance to succeed. And the best chance to succeed is your quarterback being upright. And that has to be priority number one.
I've always said this, a plan that can't be changed is a bad plan.
Yeah.
And if you got a plan, that's fine, and I just think at the end, your problems can never be bigger than your purpose. Okay? That's how it works in life. We all got problems. We got problems right now, okay, on offense, okay. Well, what is the purpose? The purpose is, first of all, protect the guy that plays with the ball. He's a quarterback, okay? That is our purpose. Well, how do we do that? Okay, well, here's our problems. The problems is we can't protect. Well, what do we do to help protection? You just mentioned one with the tight end, whether it's a back. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. They have enough personnel players where they can actually protect this guy.
So real quickly, because I want to finish on other football to talk about in a bit, the offensive line. I heard some former old linemen who I really respect, who are in this business now, talking about it, saying a lot of it starts with how you rate offensive linemen. So I'm going to go back to when you did it, and I've always thought a old lineman running a 40 was ridiculous. But I don't care what he runs a 40 in, and that's what these guys are saying. Quit worrying about their 40, how high they jump, how far they jump, and all that, and look at their feet, look at their hands, look at their technique. Maybe take a guy that's not as good as an athlete. You don't go, wow, what an athlete, but you know what he does? He steps the right way. His head's in the right spot. His hands are in the right spot. May not be a great athlete, but fundamentally he's more sound than this guy who looks like a great athlete.
Yeah, you make a great point, and I always like tough guys. I like tough guys. I like guys that just tough. I just think that those are the guys at the end you want, especially inside, okay? Your guards and your center, they got to be tough guys, okay? The left tackle, in my opinion, in today's world, he's a corner. He's a corner because he's playing against the best pass rusher out there. He's in space all the time. The left tackle's in space all the time. He's a bump and run corner. If you can imagine a bump and run corner playing a great wide receiver, they use the same technique. I can remember being a coach in Kansas City, and I would go in the offensive line room, okay? I was a scout. And I'd go in the offensive line room, and I basically would watch the left tackle against Derek Thomas, who was our defensive end, and Neil Smith. And I'm going, and Howard Mudd was the coach. I said, Howard, I said, this left tackle is like a corner playing bump and run. He says, Herm, you're exactly right. The footwork and everything. If you're playing bump and run, you're square. You got a guy coming off the edge. It's no different than covering a wide receiver playing bump and run. He's got to have great hands and great feet, okay? The other guys, to me, they're tough guys.
Right.
Just get you some tough guys. Get you some guys that grab and hold and kick you. Get you some guys that want to fight inside, and you'll be okay. And the left tackle is the guy he's the best athlete generally of the offensive lineman.
Mike and Mike, Herm Edwards is in our studio. Go around the National Football League with some action. An interesting division. We talked about the Giants, so let's talk a little bit about the NFC East, where the Philadelphia, where both of you guys played the majority, Herman, your entire career.
Yep.
And the Eagles with an interesting start to their year, and Wentz and what they're looking like as you assess the Eagles through 2 weeks in a division where Dallas looks like they have some warts, and the Giants candidly look terrible, and Washington's a little up and down. I like the Eagles.
I like the Eagles. I'm a little bit worried. They're a little bit pass happy right now. When you break them down, they're averaging about 40 passes a game and only 16 runs. That's a little bit bothersome.
Tough to get done.
You know, you just can't get all of a sudden going one way too far. And I get it. You know, it's easy. You know, it's funny in football. I was the head coach. You know, those offensive coordinators, boy, they sit there and they run the ball and they make 2 yards, and it's like, and then they run it again and make maybe 3 yards, and then they sit there and go, you know, I could throw a pass out there and make 5 yards every time. And before you know it, they start chucking it. And they keep chucking it because they don't like what it takes to run. You got to have a mentality to run. It's not always pretty.
Too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not pretty, see? And so you start throwing it, and then when you look at the game, you go, boy, I only ran the ball 16 times, huh? Yeah, you threw it 40, coach. And before you know it, at the end of the season, you're going to have 670-odd passes, and you're going to be way out of balance. And that's never good.
We saw Detroit run in this game. We know they can pass. The defense playing a little better. With injuries in Green Bay, the quarterback, I'm not sure in Minnesota. Chicago still seems to be a ways. Could Detroit be the team in the North there?
Who would ever think it? I still think Green Bay is, Aaron Rodgers, goes down and plays in Atlanta, and both his left tackles are dressed like us.
Yeah.
They're standing there watching the guy. They're up there looking at the screen, looking at themselves. Hey, we're on television. No, you should be out there. Your poor quarterback's running around. He got no
then
shot,
you lose
right?
Your receiver,
You're
your
right.
interior
and
line.
And so I still think Green Bay, when they get healthy, their defense is playing a little bit better, which is good. And I think when they get healthy, they're still the team to beat.
Herman, give me some Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. I was on the afternoon show with our friends in Chicago on ESPN 1000 the other day, and the fans are screaming for the rookie quarterback. They're seeing Deshaun Kaiser playing in Cleveland and Deshaun Watson playing in Houston, and we traded up to get this Mitchell Trubisky, and the quarterback that we have here, Mike Glennon, is not setting the world on fire, and he's not our future. I want to see the kid. What do you think?
Well, I think he's got about 2 more games, maybe. And then you got to pull the hook. Because here's the problem you have. You got a veteran guy who hasn't played in a while. And I said this. He's going to get off to a slow start probably because he hasn't played a lot. But here's the problem when you look at it from the coaching standpoint. You go, I got a veteran guy in here now. He's turning the ball over, okay? I mean, he's giving it to the other guy. He's turning the ball over. Now, I get a rookie to do that. I mean, hey, that's what I'm calling the guy. And I said, look, the rookie can turn the ball over.
He also had drop passes that could have beat Atlanta in week 1.
I get that, but I'm just saying he's turning the ball over now. I said, you can't turn it over. I said, because I bring the rookie in, he can turn it over. And by week 8, he's going to be a better player. Okay? That's what I'm betting on. Mm-hmm. And so that's what he's facing. He's facing that and the fact that they keep losing and they're not scoring points. Guess what? I bring the rookie in. The rookie can do this, right? And we're going to get better. He's going to be a better quarterback in week 8 because the fact that now he's got experience. And next year he's going to be even a better quarterback. So that's what, Glennon is facing right now. And he knows it. He knows it. He feels it. Trust me. He knows that, you know what? He hears it.
Oh, yeah.
You can say he doesn't hear it. He hears it.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks.
So you have tonight 49ers and Rams, and everybody's going to joke, what a bad game it is. I'm actually looking forward to it. I like what the Rams are doing and where they're going. If you're a 49ers fan, what are you looking for? You don't have your quarterback of the future yet. You have a young coach. You have a young GM.
Next year's draft.
So when you're watching this team tonight
Kirk
and
Cousins.
you're watching your team through the year, what are you looking for?
Be competitive. Just be competitive. And I think they've done that. Their defense is kind of, look, now, they didn't have a nice start. I mean, they played Carolina, team that went to the Super Bowl, and they turn around and go to Seattle. I mean, come on. I mean, they're rebuilding, and they got to play those 2 defenses right out the gate. Well, guess what? You're not probably going to score a lot of points, right? So I think they're competitive. I went to one of their practices. I think they're all in. They got a young nucleus on defense that they're trying to build. When Foster, he's hurt right now. He comes back, he's going to be a good player.
Solomon Thomas as well.
So they got some good players. Offensively, Coach Shanahan, he has the system. And I said this in the beginning. When he went there, he has this nice playbook, and the Atlanta emblems on the playbook. He just changes it a little bit, and he puts the 49ers. But when they break the huddle, Julio Jones, Sanu, and Freeman and Coleman, they don't break the huddle with that offense. And it's just so that's what you're dealing with right now.
Looks a little different.
Just a little bit.
I don't mean to make jokes, but they're one of those teams that is not. They're not going to win this year, and they're not developing a quarterback. So they're really kind of accomplishing almost nothing. It's a situation I know very well. I got to run.
Thanks, Herm.
Herman's got to go to Sports Center. Thank you, Herman. Back in a flash. Mike and Mike.
First time skydiving?
Sure is.
Okay, you just open the door like this and you jump. Wait.
Should we be like in tandem?
Tandem? That's a great idea.
Are you a certified instructor?
No, but I love parachutes and I love people. Here we go.
You wouldn't take chances with an uncertified skydiving instructor. Don't do it with your finances. Find a certified financial planner professional today at letsmakeaplan.org. CFP. Work with the highest standard.
Did you hear that 91% of guys that use Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant recommend it? Dove Men Plus Care user Daniel said that his armpits aren't the worst thing at the gym anymore. Make the locker room a better place and pick up some new Dove Men Plus Care for your gym bag at your local retailer.
A few football things to wrap up here on the topics we've been discussing with the Bears and Trubisky. And my response when those guys in Chicago were asking me about it, Sylvie and Waddle was off that day, but whatever, the afternoon guys on ESPN 1000 were asking me what I think about when they should put Trubisky on the field. And I said, it should be determined exclusively by when they think it's in the best interest of Trubisky to put him on the field. Don't do it in the interest of trying to salvage an unsalvageable season. You could put Joe Montana on that team right now. They'd be the fourth best team in the NFC North. So don't do it thinking, well, we can salvage a season. Do it thinking this is when the best time is to put the kid on the field.
I don't think there's any thought that Trubisky is going to salvage the season.
But that's what the fans are screaming. They're seeing a quarterback they don't like. Put the kid in.
No. I don't think they're screaming to put him in to say he can save our season. I think they're screaming to put him in to say, dude, he's a quarterback of the future. Let's go. Let's just start it right now. Let's get through his growing pains so we can grow and get into to next year. So I'm with Herm. It's going to happen in a couple of games. I do think that. But I do think you should be in a position to give him the best chance. And the best chance is with the healthiest your O-line can be. Sitton had the ribs hurt. Kyle Long hasn't played yet. Let those guys be on the field. You know, let's have the best group in front of him to give him the best chance to succeed. And then obviously you can help along with the play calling as well. But yeah, I do believe, and I think Glennon, I don't think Glennon has been horrible, but to Herm's point, he turned the ball over. And to Herm's point, and he's right, a rookie can turn the ball over. But Glennon, well, how different would it have been an opening day to playing the team that was in the Super Bowl if your receivers actually caught the ball and you won that game that Glennon was putting right on the money to your receivers? Would anybody be singing a different tune?
Of course.
If
the Bears are 1-1 right now with a win over Atlanta, they'd be singing a different tune.
All that would be was to just delay the inevitable a little longer is what it would have done. So I certainly don't want to heap all this on Glennon at all. And turning the ball over, he knows you can't do that. And Herm is right. You can get a rookie to do that. So I do think it'll come sooner rather than later with the switch. But I do think a key component is let's make sure your O-line is about as healthy as it can be, even though you're into the season. And that's tough to keep saying to give him the best chance.
Normally, when you look at a schedule and you say, what's the time that you might consider making that move, you look at the bye week. The Bears have a Week 9 bye followed by 2 home games against Green Bay and Detroit. But here's another little opening in the schedule worth looking at. They play on Thursday night at Green Bay in Week 4. Then they don't play again until a week from that Monday. At home in Week 5. So that would be almost 2 full weeks, like 11 days, if you wanted to get the rookie up and going. So if those would be 2 little junctures in the schedule that you might look at as spots where they might
Wouldn't
do
be shocking. So that would be after the 4th game. So they play Pittsburgh, and then they're at Green Bay, and then it would be a home game against Minnesota. Really good defense, by the way.
They're all good defenses.
Yeah, they are. Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Minnesota, Baltimore, Carolina. That's your next 5. So you can't escape that, so you can't wait to say, it's maybe a better defense for him to play against. I mean, at some point, if you feel it's time to get him in, then you get him in.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance, where they'll compare rates for you so you get the best deal even if it's not with Progressive, saving you time and money. Now, that's Progressive. Call or click today. The other team that we've had under a bit of a spotlight here is the Giants, and the Eagles can bury the Giants this weekend. And you, Golic, have a lot of experience in that NFC East. And it always feels like every sort of generation, and it works out cyclically, it doesn't always stay the same, but teams in that division have each other's number. Like if you just watched in recent years, the Giants have the Cowboys' number. Eli is 20-13 against Dallas and Washington. He's 4-12 against the Eagles, all those numbers being since 2009. So, with some iteration of the teams that they're playing on, he's playing on right now. He has great success against Dallas, great success against Washington, no success against Philly, and that's where he's going this weekend. And only 3 out of 132 teams to start 0-3 have made the playoffs since 1990 when they went to the current format. So they can basically get buried this weekend. So here's Ben McAdoo saying, quote, "We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's insanity. It's not working. So we're going to look to make some changes this week. Maybe a little bit more drastic this week, to use your word." I guess a reporter had used the word drastic. "If that means me giving up play calling duties, that's something that the offensive staff will look at, that we'll talk about." So, Mike, what would constitute to you drastic changes? Obviously, someone else calling plays would be one.
That would be one. Absolutely.
But whoever's calling the plays, if that offensive line, if you're not finding ways to help them on the field, I don't know that it matters.
What's drastic? Drastic is somebody else calling the play, somebody being fired, which we saw in Cincinnati.
Right.
Cincinnati. Somebody else calling plays is the next step. Everybody has a job, but someone else is calling plays, or changing personnel. Well, again, how are you going to change the personnel?
How about changing scheme?
Well, you wouldn't be changing scheme. That's part of play calling. You don't go in and say, all right, throw everything out. They have plays in their arsenal that helps linemen.
With max protect or some sort of more protection.
You either bring more guys in, which you have in your arsenal. They've done it. They've brought in an extra block? Or
just 14 of 108 snaps.
So only 14 times, but they do it. I mean, they have it's not like they have to get the playbook out and add pages to it. It's in the playbook. Having extra blockers in and or helping by chipping or a tight end or something, you just have to do it. What you have, in my opinion, is a coach that says, this is our philosophy, this is what we do, and everybody needs to do their job. And I get it from a professional standpoint, you do, but it doesn't always work that way. You have trouble up front. So the whole idea, as I said, for a coach is to put your players in the best position to have a play work. And the best position, because they don't run the ball. That's another thing. They can run it more. They've had the least amount of attempts in the league at 30 rushing attempts. And to Herm's point, and he's right, you run the ball and get 2 yards, you run the ball and get 3 yards, you're like, well, I can throw it and get maybe 5 yards. Why do I need to run it anymore? Because we can't run it. Attempts matter. And they need to up it. Philadelphia needs to up it as well. Absolutely they do. But for the Giants, you have plays you can do it. You just have to have the mindset to say, okay, we have an issue here. Now, publicly, you can, I know he said that about Eli, but he backed Eric Flowers, Justin Pugh backed Eric Flowers, and that's what you do publicly. But privately, listen, it's a business, and it's about winning. Your game plan, and when your offensive coaches are meeting for the game plan, what you talk about is, okay, how do we keep Eli on his feet? What do we need? That should be question one. How's Odell's ankle? First question, quite honestly. And then, how do we keep Eli on his feet? And that is, okay, what do we do to help the offensive line? What's going to do the best thing for us? And they have to do it. They just haven't been doing it, which has been stunning to me. How many times can you see the same thing happen and not adjust to it? And just basically say, well, he's got to block and do a better job. Well, I mean, come on.
That's why it frustrated me a little bit that he got on Eli personally after the game, which is, I get it. And Eli had a great response. I'm looking at a quote here from Eli. There was a question. I'm not sure, was this just in the media availability yesterday, or was this from his WFAN interview? I'm not sure where it came from, but either way, the question is there anything about McAdoo's public criticism of you that disturbed you or makes you feel a need to talk to him? And Eli's answer, which is terrific, was no. It's a part of being in the NFL. You can't be sensitive, and I think everyone's gotten very sensitive, players and everybody. If someone says anything negative about you or you did something wrong, then you've got a problem. Coach McAdoo and I have a great relationship. I think he understands that. I told him when he first got here, I enjoy being coached. If I screw something up, let me know. I want to be coached. So we talked about things, and there's some things I've gotten to that I know, I've got to do that I've got to be better at, which is a great answer.
Yeah.
Great answer. But the only thing I can think to myself is, if Eli had gotten up there when the coach says sloppy quarterback play, because he didn't get a ball snapped on fourth down, and I get it. That's the quarterback's job.
Yeah.
It was a sloppy play. But sloppy quarterback play in a post-game press conference amounts to pretty serious criticism by a coach in the NFL in this day and age. If Eli had said something like, well, I tell you what, it's what's the word I'm looking for here when you do stubborn? It's stubborn coaching. We just will not help my left tackle no matter what. Even if you just want to call him out. Stubborn coaching. We will not bring more guys into protection no matter what. And that's why I'm getting sacked repeatedly and hit repeatedly. If Eli says that, it's the worst crime that's ever been committed by a quarterback ever. He's throwing his coach under the bus and all that kind of thing. And I understand that the coach is the coach and Eli is a player.
Yeah, there's something to that.
But Eli has a $100 million contract and has won 2 championships and is going to the Hall of Fame and has done 1,000 times more for that franchise than the coach has. So there was something about that kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I do think there is something coach to player, player to coach. That being said, I still disagree with him saying that. You can, as Eli's answer there about being coached, be coached at the facility. Be coached in the meeting room. Be coached on the practice field. I don't think he needed to do that publicly. That's just me. I think it's all for one and one for all. Boring on your post-game stuff. And I know other people like when you get called out, hey, they're just being honest. You know what? Save the honesty for the meeting room as far as I'm concerned, for the people that matter. And they better get honest with themselves. And just because you don't think that Eric Flowers is getting ripped in meetings? You don't think he's getting, I've been in those meetings when you're not doing well. There's ripping, and then there's a point when you know it, when you get ripped so much that they stop ripping you and just start trying to build you back up. When you're like, okay, that's an issue. And I don't know what's going on in those meetings, but he's getting beat. That whole line, Justin Pugh did the right thing by saying, hey, it's not one, it's all of us. Because they're struggling overall as an offensive line. But there's no doubt that Flowers is struggling, and there's no doubt to me they are banging their heads against the wall by not adjusting with formations and or plays and or ways to help keep Eli up. I don't understand it.
They could be buried if they lose. The only thing I'll say is starting 0-3 is bad, obviously. But right now they're 0-2. No one in the division is better than 1-1.
No, it's exactly right. And listen, every team has their issues,
sure.
Right? So
yeah, if let's say the Eagles beat them, then Philly will be 2-1. The Giants will be 0-3. It's not an insurmountable margin.
Not in that division.
What is Dallas going to be this year? Washington's not going to win 11 games this year. I agree. Think. Dallas could. That's the one team where they get everything kind of righted. That's the team you could see running away. But I think that's a competitive enough division. The Giants still have some time to figure it out, but it's getting late early out here. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. 4-year-old girl hit in the face on a foul ball yesterday at Yankee Stadium. 5th inning of a win over the Twins. The fan, a toddler, taken to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. She was attending the game with her grandparents. The girl's father and grandfather addressed the media saying, quote, it's too early to tell if she would need surgery. Obviously, it's the family's private business just how seriously hurt she is, and no one should be inquiring into that. Having said that, of course, there's an enormous amount of conversation again, and as I've said many times, it would be nice if we had this conversation before someone gets hit in the face rather than after, about whether they need to do more things involving netting or other measures to increase player safety at these ballparks. Our Mark Teixeira, who saw it a million times in his career, said this yesterday.
It's really tough. I mean, I played a few years in the big leagues, and I saw so many guys, kids getting hit in the stands. After my first few years, I stopped looking into the stands. When I'm playing first base and there was a line drive down the first base line, I stopped looking in the stands because you can see some pretty bad stuff. And you see what these players are doing right now. I mean, they are visually shaken up here, as they should be. I mean, you see a little kid getting hit like that, it just tears your heart apart. So I have a lot of confidence in Rob Manfred. I'm a big Rob Manfred fan. He's going to fix this. If the teams don't do it on their own, there's going to be mandates for more netting down the line.
See, that's the part I don't know. Where can the mandates come from? Rob Manfred can't stand up there and say every ballpark put netting, down to the foul pole. I don't believe he has the power to do that. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I think if the majority of the owners don't want it, then I don't know how he makes it happen.
So I don't know if it's an individual thing and that's how it's going to be done or not. But to me, we have talked about this before. It just seems to me I think you have to put the netting up. And as I'll continue to say, fans will adjust. Fans will adjust to it just like players adjust to things. You sit there and you want to blame the parents. You want to blame this. So the bottom line is people are getting hurt. And you just don't want that. You don't want to be in that situation because you sit there. For those that are blaming the parents, okay, you blame the parents. Now, what if it's your kid and someone's blaming you? Your kid's laying in the hospital. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And in baseball, really more than any other sport, right? I'm trying to just rattle through the sports in my head of somebody getting hurt. The errant golf ball, that could hit somebody in the head and cause.
And hockey, I mean, the puck will go up.
Listen, we've had. I mean, one of the reasons with the netting that they put up, I believe it was a little girl got killed. I mean, I can't even fathom that. And the netting went up. It was after that, I believe, right, Hembo? So I mean. You want to talk about the ultimate reaction to something. Somebody had to lose their life, but to me, it's to the point. Put the netting up. The fans will adjust to it, and you go from there. I mean, do we think fans are going to start boycotting and say, I'm not going to pay those ticket prices then because now you're obscuring my view? I don't know some of the fallout from it, the tentacles from it, if you try and do that. But it's being done in places. You mentioned in Japan it's being done, and what does it look like? And you could ask fans there what they think. I mean, you could find out where it's being done and see. But for the safety of the fans and the kid here, but the safety of the fans, I just think we're at that time to do it. Would you agree? I
yes.
mean, do you think it's that time?
I think we are past the time.
I would say that. You're right. I'm not saying it now because the little girl got hit. We've talked about this before, and we thought.
Look, we went through a little bit of a phase. I forget exactly what part of the season it was last year, but there was a little stretch where this happened a bunch of times in a row. And we yelled and screamed about it on this show, and a million other people did as well. And it looked like something was going to get done, and a few things did. But there was not any, well, obviously not enough of a change that it affected this. And then the conversation just went away. And that's what will happen here if no one does anything. The conversation will move on to the next thing, and people will forget until the next time a little kid gets hit in the face at the game. And so that's why I keep saying, let's do this before the kid gets hit in the face.
And let's not say, oh, God, this is so reactionary. Well, it somewhat is, but not just to this little girl getting hit. This has been going on and on, and it's happened, as Greeny said, talked about. At some point, you just have to say enough is enough. You know, we need to put the netting up.
All right, let's move on. Mike and Mike, we got a bunch of stuff in the hopper today. Next up is Over Under, brought to you by Cabbage, who created a simple way for businesses to get flexible access to up to $100,000. That's Cabbage with a K. The staff has put together some over-unders for us. Mike, let's go through a couple of these quickly here. Over-under on the number of home runs that Giancarlo Stanton will hit this year is set at 60. He has 56 with 10 games remaining.
I want to say over. I mean, I absolutely want to say over.
See, I hate when they don't put a half on it because I think he's going to hit exactly 60. So
I'll change
a
it.
Push.
60.5.
I'm going to go under.
If it were 60.5, I think I would as well.
And if it was 59.5, I'm going to go over. I think he's going to hit 60.
I'd love to see 60. I'd love to see him with a home run number that has a 6 in it.
Next, over under on number of home runs for Aaron Judge is 50. He has 45 with 10 games remaining.
He did hit 2 in his last 3 games, and we know he went for that long period without it. So say 49.5. Over
that
under.
One I'm going to go under.
I'm going to go under as well. Yep.
Next, over under the week that Mitch Trubisky starts for the Bears. We're going to go week 10.
I'm going to go under that.
Their bye week is week 9, and as we pointed out again, they have that mini break. They go from a Thursday to a Monday, so it's
between their 4th and 5th game.
Right.
Green Bay and Minnesota, it's Thursday to a Monday, so plenty of days there. So I'm going to go under week 10. I think he'll be in before that. I don't think it needs to be. We're so caught up on this bye week thing. You know, you can start giving him more reps in practice. You don't have to just make the switch and all of a sudden, you know, you can get a few more and start building up to it to where it doesn't have to be on a bye week all the time. So
Understood.
I'll go under.
If you wait till after that for the Minnesota game, though, now you're on a short week. You know, then you're playing Carolina. But look, their defense, they're playing a murderer's row of defenses no matter what you do.
I mean, you can't. So I think it's under.
I'm going to go week 10. I'm going to go under. Yeah. Yes, I would go over if we were doing week 4. Week 5. Over or under the number of NFC South teams that will be undefeated after this week. The over-under is at 1.5.
So right now we have 3. Atlanta goes to Detroit. Tampa Bay's undefeated. They go to Minnesota. New Orleans goes to Carolina, which is undefeated.
So Carolina's going to win.
I think Carolina's going to win.
Is Atlanta going to win at Detroit? Those are both undefeated teams.
Yeah, and those other 2 games, Tampa at Minnesota, Atlanta at Detroit.
Where are we on Bradford right now? Where do we stand on that?
Day to day.
So that's a big
and
factor
it was,
in this,
and
isn't it?
From what we got gathered last, it was a non-contact injury, which is
not good.
Even worse news
for a guy who's got history of knees.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to say Tampa's going to win. So that's 2. So that's already over. So whatever else happens,
I'll go over as well. I just thought it was all 3 of them or none. Over 1.5. I'll go over as well.
We'll have Schefter in here in an hour. Maybe he'll have something for us on Sam Bradford. Over under on the number of owners you think would vote against an extension for Roger Goodell at 1.5. That's a really good question. Again, Schefter, when he comes in, will detail for you his story that the deal is done, for all intents and purposes done. Goodell's going to get his extension despite whatever opposition to it Jerry Jones put up. Do you think that there's more than one owner out there that would vote against an extension for Roger Goodell?
There probably is, but I think the majority still want him to be the commissioner. But to sit there out of 32 or really 31 that are sitting there with Green Bay being publicly owned, I would say there would be 2. There's no way I'd sit there and say all of them, want the extension. But I do think the vast majority do want to give him the extension.
All right, guys, I'm going to skip down to the last one here in the interest of time. I like this question. Over under on the number of rookies that will rush for 1,000 yards this year at 3.5. Right now, you've got Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, and Chris Carson all in the top 10 in the league in rushing. Samaje Perine, Tariq Cohen, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, and others are all off to good starts.
Yeah, they are, but
well.
all those others, Perine and Cohen and McCaffrey and Mixon, they're not like their main backs. They're not getting the lion's share, at least at this point, of carries, where Fournette, Dalvin
Perine
Cook
got benched for a fumble in the preseason. Yeah. Now they're finally going to give him the ball again.
But, so
he's good.
He is good, but as I said, they're running back by committees, or they haven't gotten lion's shares just yet.
I think Mixon is going to get the majority of the carries.
At some point, they may, I do think, but Hunt, Fournette, and Cook are right now.
So that's three who are going to get it.
So that's three. I would think
if those three guys stay healthy, they're all going to run for 1,000 yards.
They are.
Right?
I agree
with
that. I'll go over it. I'll
go
one
over
more
as well because you just need one more.
Yeah. Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million, what color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo! Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Giancarlo Stanton hit his 56th home run yesterday. Marlins have 10 games remaining. We're all rooting for him to get to 60 here. And Roger Goodell's contract extension is, quote, getting done, according to our Adam Schefter. A source telling Schefter the deal is, quote, getting papered right now. We'll have Schefter in studio in an hour. We'll talk about it then. SportsCenter brought to you by Dollar Shave Club.
Don't let the name fool you. Dollar Shave Club has way more than just razors. Try their first month starter set with travel size shave butter, body cleanser, and an executive razor, all for just $5. After that, replacement cartridges ship for just a few bucks a month, I should say. Get yours at dollarshaveclub.com/Mike.
Twitter reaction here. J. Ryan Duddleson tweets, to the pay attention, don't sit there crowd. Do we expect only people who have pro reflexes to sit in those seats? How about a 70-year-old? That's the thing. Again, I told the story. I've only sat in seats like that once in my entire life at a baseball game. And until you sit there, you don't realize just how fast that ball is coming at you.
And do you have to be somewhat aware of where you're sitting and what can happen? Yes, you have to be. But to sit there and say that, a 105-mile-an-hour screaming baseball that comes at you, that you should have the quickness of a ball player to be able to deflect that or catch it or knock it down, that's a tough call.
Not only that, but it isn't easy to be fully fixated on every pitch in a 9-inning baseball game. I mean, what we're basically saying is you better be vigilant, especially if you're going to bring your kids. And that's the point of the story I was telling. I had my kids with me, and they were little then. I don't remember exactly what year this was, but my kids were little, much too little to be paying total attention to everything that's going on. And I'll be honest with you, I was nervous. I mean, really nervous, because if a ball comes at you that fast, I could try and knock it. I probably would knock it down, but A, it would hurt me, which I'm not looking forward to. And B, what if I miss? It's just that you don't want to have to take that into account when you're going to a baseball game.
No.
Like, it should just be fun. It should just be a fun day at the ballpark.
So I think we're there. I think we're there with the netting. It's at other ballparks, we know, as you've talked about with Japan, and I'm sure at minor league ballparks you have them as well. And I just think it's that time.
There's a lot of these. There's so many of them. I feel obligated to read it. As crazy as it sounds to me. Danny tweets, fans should give face masks to children and people who have ADD. Or another one here that says supply optional helmets with some sort of plexiglass face protector for people sitting in those sections. Is that where we are now? I mean, all of a sudden we're going to have like Star Wars-esque masks.
What? Put up netting. Is it the end of the world?
It does feel like we just have to do it.
I mean, it really does.
I understand why they don't want to do it, but it makes more sense to me than having everyone sitting there wearing batting helmets with plexiglass face masks affixed to them. Keep the Twitter reaction coming through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Nothing makes up for your fantasy football obsession. Quite like surprising your family with a bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. And to order 36 autumn roses for just $36, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Okay, so again, we'll have Schefter in here in an hour, and he'll talk about any number of football topics up to and including, I suppose, football trades, which aren't particularly common. I came across a story yesterday that kind of stopped me in my tracks because this isn't something I thought was out there. Frank Isola, who's as plugged in on the NBA as just about anybody you want to come across, and certainly very close with the Knicks, writes, quote, Carmelo Anthony's camp is cautiously optimistic that a trade deal with Houston will be struck before Monday, and trying not to think about the potential media circus that will take place if Carmelo is still with the Knicks. 2 weeks ago, Carmelo's wife, Lala, said the family thought a trade would have been completed by now. Mentally, Carmelo and his family have moved on to Houston. Reality is another story. Hopefully Mills and Perry, the president and GM of the Knicks, will have the right answers when they address the media on Friday, because the Carmelo issue isn't going away until he goes away. Now, have I long believed that these talks continue to take place? Sure. We've been hearing about that and knowing about that for what feels like months and months now. But Carmelo's camp is cautiously optimistic a deal will be struck before Monday. Using the word imminent like that, and the family have moved on mentally to Houston. Mike, I'm not going to lie to you. That took me by surprise.
Yeah, me as well. And when you mentally move on, camps aren't that far off to when they're going to be starting. And if you got a guy, now listen, it's not like if the trade doesn't happen, he can't get back into, the groove, and if he's going to be playing for the Knicks. So it's not like, oh my God, he's mentally gone, so he's going to be of no use to the Knicks. In fact, if he stays there, I don't buy that at all. But boy, it seems like this one's far. I had completely kind of put it to the side as well. This isn't going to happen before the season. That would be interesting if this one gets done and by Monday. So you have Harden and Chris Paul and Carmelo. What does it do for that team? Are they better than the Golden State? No, not at all. But that's an interesting matchup, interesting group there on what they would do and what the future would hold. Because there's a lot of us that think even after next year, Chris Paul may be somewhere else. Maybe Melo would too. I don't know. But this would be interesting if the Knick era with Carmelo would finally be over.
I've been telling you for the longest time, and I'm going to call you when this happens. I'm going to call into Golic and Wingo on the day this happens, and I'm going to have my laugh.
Yeah, you okay.
Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Chris Paul, and Dwayne Wade will all be on the same team next year, meaning by the time training camps open in 2018. I don't know for sure which team it will be, but they will all be on the same team.
That could be our last bet.
Yeah, we won't be on the same show at that point, but we can still make a bet.
Absolutely.
I can have to do something really awful on mine, or you can have to do something really awful on yours.
Right,
I look forward to that greatly because I'm going to win this one.
No, you're not.
This is right. They're all going to be on the same team.
You're that confident you're going to win?
Let's put it this way.
Got to shave your head.
No, I'm not doing that.
Well, no, wait.
I'm not shaving my head.
How confident you are.
I've never been.
Hair will grow back.
I'm not confident enough in anything that I would say that. I'll say this.
We had a lot of this talk of them getting ripped out and stuff. You get a nipple ring.
No, I'm not getting a nipple ring.
Come on.
I'm not getting a nipple ring.
How confident are you?
Let me go back. He is. I will couch it only this way.
Okay.
I believe that is their plan. I believe they'll do it. I'm not 100% sure that for a variety of circumstances it just won't work out. Like, there's no question. You talk to Stephen A. and people like that. They know that the plan originally was Carmelo and Chris Paul to be together at the wedding and the toast and all that kind of stuff. People have heard those stories. And then Carmelo's contract situation came into play. Any number of things can happen, injury, etc. But all other things being equal, I believe that those four guys plan to be together. I think they will be together. And if not, I'm betting right now a minimum of 3 of them will be together.
No, it's either all or nothing for this bet. Okay. I said all 4.
I'm not betting a shaving of the head on all 4. I will bet something because I do believe it'll happen, but I'm not betting that. Let me make it clear. I'm not, and I think I've been making this clear for 15 years. I'm not making that bet for anything, literally anything.
I've been disappointed for 18 years.
I understand that. You had to. I'll tell you the one I was most afraid of. The one that I sat by the television. I'll never forget this as long as I live. And the coach of Pitt, who is now the coach down in at his alma mater. His name just jumped out of my head. What is it? Jamie Dixon.
Jamie Dixon
was the coach of Pitt, and they had a really good team that year, and they lost. I want to say to Villanova in the Elite Eight. And that was the game that was going to decide it between us. And I love Jamie Dixon. We got to know him over there. He's a great guy, and I like Pitt, and I wanted to root for them. But I am screaming at the television for Villanova because that won me the bet the year that you wound up having to get your legs waxed. That was the one I was the most scared of.
What would you going to have to do?
Same thing. The loser was going to get their legs waxed.
You were scared of that? I mean, you do it every 2 weeks.
I do not.
I mean, are you serious? I mean, that's something that's part of your
For what it's worth, I've never gotten my legs waxed. All right, we just got a text. All right, let me pause on that because we just got a text from Woj relative to this story that we're talking about, which is very important. All right, so we will add to this as we go.
Putting us in our place.
Let me find quickly, and I'll read you the Woj thing in just a second. But because we had that there, we're talking about Mason Rudolph. I was looking yesterday. McShay put out his own big board, his update. He doesn't call it the big board, but his top 32 NFL draft prospects. And I wanted to see how many quarterbacks were in it. He doesn't have Mason Rudolph as one of his top 32 prospects. No. He doesn't have Lamar Jackson as one of his top 32
just
prospects.
Just the 3 quarterbacks.
Just the 3 quarterbacks, and in a little different order. He has Sam Darnold, the number 1 player in the draft, and he has Josh Allen, the kid from Wyoming, number 2. Now, a lot of people are falling off, jumping off.
He struggled.
He plays for Wyoming, and for those who are not following this, because most people don't follow Wyoming football, but if you root for a team that's going to draft a quarterback, you're paying attention. They've played 2 Power 5 conference teams already this season.
Got smoked by me through
and then Oregon, and they've gotten obliterated, which I understand that he's playing with inferior talent, but his numbers have been really bad.
They have. But you again. Just as good numbers, I don't get hung up on. I be careful of bad numbers as well. You look at interceptions. What were the interceptions like? Were they tip balls? Were they on the money? Was he reading? Did he go the right way? Did he lock onto that receiver? Is that what caused the interception? Was it just an errant pass that was the interception? There are reasons that you look, forward to. Like Mason Rudolph, I'm going to tell us straight here in a little bit, and I'm going to show you why I like what I see from him going to the next level because of how the pro game is played and what he does. Even though he has, the tag of a Big 12 quarterback, can they be successful in the NFL? It hasn't been there. Andy Reid is banking that Pat Mahomes can from Texas Tech, who they drafted, and Mason Rudolph, I think, is growing in a lot of people's stature for the next level.
Allen, for what it's worth, has played 3 games against Power 5 opponents in his career. They're 0-3. He's thrown 1 touchdown and 8 interceptions. Yeah. And in one of these games, he had 9 completions in the entire game. So, and then McShay has him as the number 2 prospect in the whole draft. And then he has Josh Rosen down a couple of spots.
I actually like the way Josh Rosen throws the ball.
Me too.
Forgetting the cross the field gunslinging mentality interception. That was, you as I said, I'd rather pull a guy back than say, give me more. I almost, of the 3, I love the way he throws the ball. Darnold, I'm a fan of as well. Allen, I'll watch more of, especially the interceptions, again, just to see how they were. But Rosen, I do like the way Rosen throws the ball.
All right, let me go back to what we were talking about here. I read you that story suggesting that at least it would make you think that a trade of Carmelo Anthony to the Rockets might be imminent. Frank Isola writing, Anthony's camp is cautiously optimistic that a deal will be struck before Monday. And our Adrian Wojnarowski was listening and texted our staff, FYI, there are no talks ongoing with Houston.
Okay.
And we tried to get Woj on, but he's busy with something. He couldn't come on right now. But he's saying there are no talks ongoing with Houston. That doesn't necessarily mean, because they've had talks, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone kind of doesn't know what everyone is willing to do, I'm assuming. And they couldn't put a trade together pretty quickly if both sides wanted to.
Right.
But if both sides liked what was on the table, maybe a deal would already have been done.
Exactly.
All I'm saying is today's Thursday.
Yep.
So the idea that a deal is going to be done between now and Monday is pretty quick.
Start of camps, too. I mean, so as we said, this is the earliest the NBA season starts. What, October 18th?
Yeah. They've moved that up like almost 2 full weeks from what it used to be. I think it's only a week or so compared to what it was last year.
Right.
But, I mean, I remember when the season would start at the very end of, like, Halloween would be the first day of the season. But they've done that to try and stretch the games out. They don't want the back-to-backs and the 4 games in 5 nights. And I get it. I love it. I love what Silver is doing. He's a proactive commissioner. He's recognizing problems, and he's doing something about them.
Right.
And does it solve all of the problems? No, but at least he's making some adjustments that go in that direction, and it's all in the interest of fans getting to see the players that they want to see play in the games that they pay good money to go to. So whatever. The point is, could Carmelo be dealt by Monday? Feels highly unlikely.
It does feel unlikely. I mean, it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world, but it does feel unlikely because it really felt like that thing went on the back burner, and wasn't going to rear its head again until after the season or another opportunity to do it. But that would be something.
Well, what did our old friend Andrew Brandt always say?
When your back's against the wall, man.
Deadlines spur actions.
Yeah, it does.
Well, if you're going to count Monday as a deadline, which means they open camp, which means Melo's got to be there, which means the entire New York media and beyond descends upon them and has a million questions about Melo's future. And it can be as simple as, the answer can be as simple as, I'm here. I'm playing here.
Right.
I'll play here as long as I'm a Knick. I'll play as hard as I can, and that's it.
That's the thing. You're a professional. He's been around a long time. If it doesn't, if there are no talks with Houston or he's not getting traded to Houston, and we hear the reports he's mentally checked out already to Houston, as I said, he's a professional. It's not like he's going to forget how to play or his mind's not going to be there. He's going to play. The biggest point of contention he had was Phil Jackson, and Phil Jackson's not there anymore. So, if he is with the Knicks, he just gets back into the groove.
All right, we'll continue with Stugotz and more next. Mike and Mike.
First time skydiving?
Sure is.
Okay, you just open the door like this and you jump. Wait.
Should we be like in tandem?
Tandem? That's a great idea.
Are you a certified instructor?
No, but I love parachutes and I love people. Here we go.
You wouldn't take chances with an uncertified skydiving instructor. Don't do it with your finances. Find a certified financial planner professional today at letsmakeaplan.org. CFP. Work with the highest standard.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, we help keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Adam Schefter in our studio in this hour as well. The news he has there is that the deal for Roger Goodell is essentially done. It's being papered despite Jerry Jones' protestation or whatever role in it Jerry was playing. And again, Schefter will be able to give us more details on that. Goodell is going to stay in place. And so despite some complaints on both sides, it will be Roger Goodell and DeMaurice Smith going forward, leading their respective sides of the NFL labor issue into the future. And, I think we all hope, regardless of which side we kind of favor, regardless of which side we think is more in the right versus in the wrong, that the two of them representing their quote-unquote constituencies can kind of work out some stuff and get in a room and figure out a few places that maybe they have some common ground and work with a little less public vitriol. I think that would be delightful, and I think it would be very good for the business.
I do as well. And I think right now, remember, you have the rest of this season, then you have 3 more seasons, the 18 season, the 19 season, and the 20 season. And it's after the 20 season that the CBA expires. So in this time, what can be accomplished? I'm not saying major things are going to be hashed out and reworked and redone, but what little victories can be had? What common ground can be found between the two? To start that, to realize that everything can't just be, about, well, we're going to do this, well, then we're going to strike and we're going to hold out, well, then we're going to lock out. And I understand for the players, if they really need to dig in on something, because I was there, one of the ultimate thing you're going to do is withhold your services and not report and strike. And as I said, I've done that. It didn't work when I did. It doesn't mean it can't work under certain situations, but you'd love for there not to be one. And I really do. Neither one of these guys waits until after the 2020 season. There needs to be, hopefully, some things talked about and discussed before that for as you said, the relationship to get better. We could all use that. We really could. I don't know, though. It's so bad right now. It's just so bad. As I compare it to, unfortunately, the Republicans and Democrats when they don't want to agree on anything just because one's a Republican or one's a Democrat. It's just like, well, wait, the league says that? Well, the union disagrees. Well, the union says that? Well, the league disagrees. And it's a shame that's why I say you find something that can give you equal footing so that there is some small agreement that you can build from.
Can I read you something, by the way? While you were talking, Chris Mortensen emailed both of us. You obviously haven't seen it yet, but I looked at it. And this is relative to our conversation about Josh Allen, who, again, Todd McShay continues to have as the number 2 overall prospect right now for next year's draft. Not just the number 2 overall quarterback ahead of Josh Rosen, but the number 2 overall prospect. This is what Mort just sent us, because we were pointing out his numbers have not been good. I'm reading you directly from Mort. He wrote to us, talked to a general manager about Josh Allen yesterday. Here are quotes. He lost his 3 top wide receivers, an 1,800-yard runner, and a pretty good center, and has a couple of freshman linemen. I'm just hoping he doesn't get hurt because he's so competitive. Probably should have come out last year. Would have been the first quarterback taken in the draft. Enough teams will work past the garbage you'll hear. No comparison with his overall skill set, size, arm, mobility, good mind, competitor. If you put him in the USC offense, Clemson, Oklahoma, or a bunch of others, they'd all be talking like there hasn't been a better quarterback prospect in years.
Yeah, that's why I said you can't go by numbers. Just like if a guy has a ton of touchdowns and less interceptions, you still want to look. Is he locking onto a receiver? What are his throws like? Is he throwing a guy open? There's always things that you can break down. And here's a guy in Josh Allen. Nobody recruited him. I mean, he ended up this big, strong, strapping kid end up at Wyoming. None of the bigger schools recruited him. So that's why I say be careful of locking in on the stats and watch the games. Watch how he throws the ball. Watch who he's looking at. Watch how he reads the defense. Look where his eyes go. How does he throw on the run? How much does he have to be on the run? There's way too many things to look at that you can throw out of college. It's just like for Lamar Jackson, throw out the running. Throw out all the plays he makes on the move because he's not going to run that much in college. So forget those plays. He's not going to be out of the pocket, this high percentage of the time. So forget a lot of that. So hone in on the things that you're looking for that translate to the next level.
But
that's what you do.
Isn't it just by definition harder to assess guys when they're playing with lower level talent, which is to suggest you're playing sometimes against. Right.
Not only
it's harder to assess them.
I mean, they assessed pretty well on him. He went early in the draft, and he seems to be panning out pretty well for a team that ran the ball a lot, by the way,
right?
Where he was. And then he had the hurt wrist and missed a lot of his last year there. Yes, it's harder to assess against the talent that you could be playing with, but it's not as hard to assess what you see. It's just like I don't care if an old lineman, is playing NAIA or the top division. You can look at his feet. You can naturally look at feet and hands. You can look at the natural play of how they move. I can watch a lineman, old lineman or D lineman, for 5 minutes and at least get something out of it that says, okay, all right, I see something there, or boy, there's a lot that needs to be worked on there. You can watch it. Because you know what you need at the next level. It's not this overall thing of can he play football. It's can he play football in the NFL. So that takes out a lot of the read option run by Lamar Jackson. A, we know he can do it, and B, he ain't going to do it much at the next level.
Right.
So, okay, let's filter through that, and let's look at the things that he's going to have to do. How does he do them?
Let's bring Stugotz in from the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz and a whole lot more. And we know that he is a fan of a team that will be very active looking for a quarterback in next year's draft. So I'm not sure how much of that conversation you heard there, Stu, but we know that, Sam Darnold is the guy that everyone seems to love, and Rosen has a lot of things that you like about him. And now here's Chris Mortensen saying that there are general managers saying that if Josh Allen had come out last year, he'd have been the first quarterback taken. Who's on the Stugotz radar for the Jets as of right now?
Greeny, here's what I know. Good morning, guys. Here's what I know. Whichever quarterback the Jets take, it's going to be the wrong one. I hate the fact. I hate the fact that the year the Jets are tanking, the year it looks like they're going to go 1-15 or maybe even 0-16, that there are 4 choices at the quarterback position. I want there to be one definitive choice where everyone's saying this is the guy you have to take. I'm not even certain it's Sam Darnold. I haven't been that impressed with him through the first couple of weeks of the college football season. But I can assure you of this. Whichever one the Jets take is going to be the wrong one. The other 3 will be Hall of Famers. The one that the Jets take will make it maybe 3 or 4 years in the NFL.
Are you truly at this point, and do you think 49er fans like you as a Jet fan are just hoping for a loss every week? I mean, are you truly looking for that?
It's funny, Mike, because I was going to ask Greeny. Usually it takes me like 6 or 7 weeks to get to the point where I'm rooting for Jet losses. I've already arrived there in week 3. Like, Greeny, how are you doing this? Because they have the Dolphins home opener this week. They have the Dolphins at home. They're 0-2. Even if they win this game, Mike, there is absolutely no hope for this Jet team moving forward. I have already resigned myself. Like, I'm rooting for the Jets to lose. This would be a bad win in week 3 against the Dolphins, even though it would get them to 1-2 in a division where, Buffalo's not that good. The Dolphins, if they lose to the Jets, we can say they're not that good. And the Patriots got off to a 1-1 start. I'm still rooting for a Jet loss this weekend, Greeny.
I would describe myself as the worst thing that a fan could ever be as far as a team is concerned. I've become indifferent. Like, I made the comment to someone yesterday, the Jets giving up on a season, just tanking a season, has made me better at my job because I used to just watch the Jet game and then I'm frantically trying to catch up with everything else that happened at the same time. I don't even watch now. It's part of what's on the Red Zone. I watch whatever they show of the Jet game, which generally speaking is very little. Yeah. I mean, last week I saw a lot of Michael Crabtree. The first week I would say I probably watched half the Jet game. But the truth is, I know they're not trying to win. The owner's brother can say whatever he wants to say. The Jets are tanking a season. Use whatever term you want. They're not. They're rebuilding. Whatever the word is that they're more comfortable using. That's what they're doing. There isn't any reason to make an emotional investment in it right now. So that's the way I feel, Stugotz. I'm paying less attention than any other time in the entirety of my life.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying more attention to the guys playing on Saturday because I'm interested in which quarterback I think is going to be the best fit for the New York Jets. I'm totally with you on that, Greeny. It hasn't made me better at my job. I can tell you that, but nothing will make me better at my job. But I assure you of this, I am not paying nearly as much attention to the Jets as I have in years past. And you're right, I'm watching all the other games on the Red Zone channel. So listen, Golic, this is just the life of a Jet fan, man. It's a miserable existence. It's a miserable existence.
All right, let's go away from football and to what happened on the baseball field with the 4-year-old girl getting hit in the Yankees game by the line drive. And the talk comes up of netting. How far should it go down first and third base line? Should it be extended or should it just be up on the fans to be able to protect themselves? We both think it is that time. And probably before this, that netting should be put up. Where are you on this, Stu?
I love that we're having the conversation after something bad happened. That's ridiculous. We should be having these conversations before something bad happens. Dan and I have talked about this on our show for years. Yeah, you can't, like the nature of the sport, that sport, baseball, where balls can come at you at a high rate of speed. There should be netting there. I mean, fans should be and feel protected when they go to a baseball game. I know it's part of their charm. You're close to the field, catching a foul ball. You bring your mitt, but not some of those screamers that come straight back and can potentially, like it did last night, hurt someone or hurt a child, and the child has to go to the hospital. Yes, they're absolutely. I don't care if it takes away from the charm of Major League Baseball. It's more important that kids and that everyone feel safe. Greeny, I have to be honest, though, and I don't want to laugh too much at this story, but I heard you at around 7:30 this morning talking about wearing catcher's masks to the baseball game for kids. Let me tell you something. I mean, my daughters will go to maybe a game, maybe 2 games a year with me. They do it just to please their dad. They'll go to a Met game with me. I will tell you, the quickest way to get my daughters to stop doing that with their dad is me telling them they have to wear a catcher's mask in 95-degree weather in the middle of July.
That's true. That's probably true.
So you put the chest pad on, too? What are you going to do? Like, where does it stop?
Actually, if they would allow you to go out and maybe have a conversation with the pitcher, during the game.
There you go.
Shouldn't be joking around about a serious topic, but I understand what you're saying. Speaking of which, yes. What is this picture that I'm looking at over here of you with an enormous scar on your head? What is this that you sent us here?
Oh boy, man, I cringe just looking at that. That happened a couple of years ago because I heard you guys talking about this story and talking about whether there should be golf netting in golf as well. That happened to me on the golf course. Now, on my golf course, I'm terrified to bring Greeny there, but I would love to bring Golic there. My golf course and the way me and my friends play, they're tricked out golf carts. The music is blaring. We play, we don't play foursomes. We play, 8-10 guys. In our group, and we all play the same holes at the same time. Greeny would be mortified by this. There is, a lot of alcohol being consumed. And so that's me. We're playing with 8 guys. We have a great match going. I can't hear. I think I'm on the 16th the 15th hole of my course, Greeny, and I can't hear one of my friends who's coming up with a 9-iron. I'm standing right there. It's the first time all day I took my hat off for a second just to get the sweat off of my forehead, and I can't hear him yell 4 because I had Pearl Jam blaring out of my golf cart, and I couldn't hear him, and I possibly had a couple of cocktails in me, and I couldn't hear him, and the next thing I know, ball hits me right in the head, 16 stitches, and that's the story. Right to the hospital, 16 stitches right from there.
Well, a couple of questions, and first a statement. I want to play golf with you and your group.
I know you do.
Sounds like the best way to possibly play golf, and it actually sounds like when Jake got married, we golfed the day before. It sounds like that golf outing with groups and dangerous golf carts and, some alcohol involved. And secondly,
yes.
You said 15th or 16th hole. The big question, you got 16 stitches. Did you finish the round?
You know what? I wanted to. I tried. I was on the 15th hole. The 16th hole is a par 3. It's a short par 3. So I did play the 16th hole with blood pouring out of my forehead, but one of the guys in our group was a doctor, and he said, listen, Stugotz, you got to go to the hospital right now. You got to go to the hospital. And I said, Doc, all right, well, take me to the hospital. And he said, no, I can't do it. I'm too drunk.
That's a tremendous.
That is just awesome.
I'm so horrified by the notion of this golf event that once again, I know what you're doing. It may be an enjoyable activity. It is not anything I would describe as golf. But I'm sure it's an enjoyable activity. I'm sorry.
Well, listen, you're both invited. You're both invited. I know Golic will take me up on that invitation. Greeny, I know I will never see you at my golf.
No, I'm otherwise occupied. I'm busy from now until the end of time. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Stugotz is with us on the Shell Pinto Performance Line. I'm told that you're interested in this story we haven't gotten to today, and it involves 2 major league players and 1 autograph, and I will let you tell the story from there. Go.
Yeah, I don't even know the reliever's first name, but that was last name.
It's Pat Neshek.
Pat Neshek.
Pat Neshek from the Colorado Rockies. So he's a guy that, one of our producers, Guillermo, is convinced that Neshek is just in the major leagues to collect memorabilia. And I'm not certain I disagree with him. But this is a guy who goes around and he's a big memorabilia guy, and he gets a bunch of guys from Major League Baseball, just about everyone, from what I've read, to sign stuff for him, for his kids, for his family, whatever. And one of the guys that he doesn't have an autograph from yet is Diamondbacks pitcher Zach Greinke. Now, they had a conversation at the All-Star game, and Greinke said, hey, not going to do it here, but the next time you see me, just come up to me and I'll get it done for you. And so Colorado's in Arizona. He sends a couple of cards to their dugout for Greinke to sign. He doesn't sign them. And then, he goes to Greinke right at the pitcher's mound, and he says, hey, come on, man, we talked about this at the All-Star game. You said you would do this for me, and Greinke's response, which is perfect, and he's a bit quirky. We all know that. He's quirky. His response is, hey, man, you're wearing me out. And he just jogs away, which is a great response. And then he goes to meet him in the outfield. Like this guy, so I see a little bit of Stugotz in the Rockies reliever because this is exactly what I would do in an effort. Like, I wouldn't take no for an answer. He meets him in the outfield, and he says, come on, Zach, do this for me. And Greinke does not break stride, runs right past him and says, listen, at this point, I wouldn't sign it if your kid was asking me to sign it. So I don't know who I agree with. I'm interested. Who do you guys agree with? Because I feel like he's being a pest and Greinke is doing the right thing here. But I will also tell you, I would act exactly the way the Rockies reliever, because I can't pronounce his name, I would act exactly the way the Rockies reliever acted in that spot. I don't take no for an answer.
It's Pat Neshek. Let me ask you, Mike, because what is the fraternity, the only times I've ever been on
Sign
the field.
it. I mean, are you kidding me? If this, in fact, is the story, what you just laid out, and it's true, this is completely on Greinke. Doesn't this, now, I don't know for a fact, but don't players sign stuff all the time
for each other
in the clubhouses
Definitely.
for each other?
I mean, I've physically seen that.
I have seen that as well. So, I mean, ask them to sign a couple of cards. Sign them. The only reason that's getting aggravating now is, I guess Neshek keeps asking him, and Zach, because you didn't sign it in the first place. I don't know why he didn't sign at the All-Star game. Maybe I don't know the full story of this thing at all, but sign it. Sign it. You don't have an issue. So if this, in fact, is the way the story went, to me, the blame is on Zach Greinke.
For the only time, someone like Stugotz or I, the only time that we ever would have been on a field would be with a media credential.
Right.
And it is very explicit that you cannot ask to take a picture with anybody. You can't ask for an autograph, not for your kid, not for a charity,
right.
not for anything, or they will take your media credential away, and they take that seriously, and they should. It's the right rule, because otherwise you would have that happening all the time. But I've always been under the impression that in the fraternity of players
sign for
would sign stuff for each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I don't understand it. It feels like there's a piece of this missing.
It does to me, too, Stu, that a piece of this is missing on why Greinke wouldn't sign these in the first place. I mean, it became an aggravating...
I think Greinke is just being Zach Greinke. Like, I think, he's stringing him along and said, All-Star game. He just keeps pushing it, kicking the can down the road until he gets rid of the guy. I just don't think he's interested in signing it. And listen, Neshek tried to make it as easy as possible. He said, listen, just put a Z there. Don't even sign your whole name. And Greinke still said no, which I just think is, I don't know, to me it's comical, man. I'm kind of with Zach Greinke. Like, the guy is a pest. He is following him around. He's stalking Zach Greinke for a Z on his baseball card. Like, come on, man, you're an adult. And then he trashed him on social media afterwards, calling him all kinds of names, man. That's not cool. You can't do that to Zach.
No, it's not cool that Greinke didn't sign in the first place. So
okay, now here's
my fault with Greinke.
This is National League Baseball.
Yeah.
Greinke is a starting pitcher.
Yep.
He will bat.
Yes.
If in a start against that.
Right in the ribs.
You're talking about if Neshek is pitching. But does one of his teammates now have the Neshek it may not wind up
please
facing
don't tell
him.
me that's going to happen.
Does one of the teammates.
No.
Come on.
No.
This is like you took our guy out at second with the cleats high.
No, it's not. It's nothing like
he
that.
He won't sign Neshek's autograph.
If Neshek
he's got to pay.
He wants to pop him, go ahead, but nobody else should.
All right.
Greeny, I think the guys on his own team are saying, man, relax. You're a professional athlete. Stop being such a dork chasing Zach Greinke around for an autograph or a Z. I actually think his teammates are on Zach Greinke's side.
Listen, doing it a few times to Zach. Zach said no, we should have just left it at no. So Neshek keep going at it. I agree with you there. But it should have never reached that point. Greinke should have just signed.
All right, we only have a minute here for Beef Stew, so let's do this quickly. Stu, do you have more beef with Kyrie Irving denying that his being traded had anything to do with LeBron, or him saying he didn't owe LeBron an explanation?
He didn't owe LeBron an explanation. LeBron taught him that, by the way. I have an issue with Kyrie just not saying what everyone knows he wants to say. He hasn't spoken to LeBron. He never talked to LeBron about this trade. It is very obvious that Kyrie Irving, and I'm fine with it, by the way, but just come out and say it, Kyrie. Like, what's the big deal at this point? You're already on the Boston Celtics. I am totally fine with the fact that Kyrie Irving no longer wanted to play with LeBron James. He didn't want to be his number two. He probably felt like in the year they won the championship, he hit all the biggest shots to help LeBron win that championship and got really none of the credit. It all went to LeBron James. He didn't want to play with LeBron anymore. I totally get it. Didn't want to be, his Robin, and didn't want to be his number two. Didn't want to be his wingman. He wanted to be a number one guy and go to the Celtics, and now he has a very good chance to win, although I don't think he'll win much there. I think he'll get to the Eastern Conference and lose. But my issue is just Kyrie not coming out and telling us what we all know is the case, is the fact that he did not want to play with LeBron James anymore. And I'm fine with that, but I'm not okay with him not saying it. Just say it already.
Last one, more beef with Kevin Durant arguing on social media or him using a fake account to do it?
Has he admitted to the fake account? I don't even know if he did. I'm reporting right now that A, he's not sorry, and B, he absolutely used a fake account. He's only sorry because he got caught. And I have a big issue with what he was saying on social media, that it's Billy Donovan's fault. Billy Donovan wasn't good enough. His supporting cast wasn't good enough. No, KD, you were up 3-1 against the Golden State Warriors. You, the best player in the world, you weren't good enough. It wasn't Donovan. It wasn't the supporting cast. You weren't good enough to close that series out. And because you weren't good enough to close that series out, you went and joined the Golden State Warriors because you couldn't beat them by yourself. So, no, that is all on KD. My issue is with KD and these secret Twitter accounts and him being so ridiculously overreactive to what fans think about him and what fans are saying about him.
That's well done. It's a good week. Stugotz here
Stu.
with Dan and company every day, coast to coast, starting right after us here on ESPN Radio. Thank you, Stu.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Do you think that and by the way, Stugotz with us, Mike and Mike, were presented by Shell Pennzoil, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. The way he described he and his buddies' golf game sounds like fun to you?
Oh, that sounds like the only way to play golf. And that literally does sound like how it got going for the last 9 holes at Jake's bachelor party, and it was an absolute ball except for the 3 or 4 people that just about almost lost their life with a sliding golf cart. But that's a whole nother,
Let's move past that.
Yeah. Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Here he is, Adam Schefter, with all the insight. And again, it wouldn't be Schefty if he wasn't texting someone right now. Good morning, Adam Schefter.
Good morning, gentlemen.
We have been reading your report all morning long about the latest with Roger Goodell. So take us through sort of all of this, because I was fascinated on Sunday when you and Mort had the report that Jerry Jones had inserted himself into the middle of this. And we know that dates back before the Zeke Elliott decision. And yet so many people, just based upon what's going on now, we'll put those two together. We had Mort in here talking about it Monday. But with that as the context, take us through where we are as far as Goodell getting his contract extended.
Well, essentially, the compensation committee had a conference call yesterday. And the way it was explained to me was that the owners resolved any of the issues and questions that they had, that the deal is getting papered right now, that the deal has to be presented to Goodell. Now, there were some people that wondered when they got this deal agreed to, presented, formalized, would Roger Goodell be willing to take it? Because there was question about how much money was going to be in the deal, how the package was going to be paid out. Was it going to be some type of deferred compensation? All sorts of questions financially with the deal that large. And the way it was explained to me last night was the owners on that compensation committee would not be putting together a package and presenting it to Goodell unless he would accept it. That, yes, they believed he would take the deal as they constructed it yesterday. So it is, quote unquote, being papered right now, and they're going to give it to him. And I was told that within days or weeks, it'll be official, it'll be finalized. But that deal, in the words of this person, is, quote unquote, getting done.
And even though he may not be making $44 million, he's still going to get papered pretty well.
Well,
with what he's going to make. And it sounds like this has always been about the money as opposed to did they want him out as commissioner.
I am in agreement with that, yes. I think when Jerry Jones was connected to some questions here about what to get done, I think it involved the money, how much was being paid, the way it was being paid. And I also think that there's some questions about some of the people that he had in place, Roger Goodell had in place in the league office, that I don't think Jerry Jones is particularly pleased with.
So, but to be clear, we don't know and won't necessarily know how much he gets paid, right?
Correct.
Based on 2 years ago, they changed their tax-exempt status.
That's exactly right.
So they don't have to announce that anymore. Do we have any way of, for lack of a better word, guessing if he has taken a significant pay cut for?
I don't think there'll be a pay cut involved.
But we were talking about in the $40 million range a couple of years ago.
And
right?
again, that's that's not the base, right? That's with everything involved with incentives.
A lot of compensation.
It is a lot of compensation.
Again, I think that the structure of the deal, my read, and nobody's going to say this, my read is that the structure of the deal will be changed, that he will have the opportunity to make just what he's always made with certain incentives and packages depending on how certain things go. How much of that is base? How much of that is incentive? I don't know the answer to that.
What kinds of things? I'm just curious. Would that be related to television ratings? Would it be related to overall revenue?
I think total revenue generated would be one area that would impact his earnings. That, to me, is the one area that just stands out in my mind. But I don't know the other areas that they would quantify into that category.
So he's going to be there through the next CBA, which ends after the 2020 season. And now it seems DeMaurice Smith is going to be there, though by term, would his next term end that March of when they're doing that, or will they extend that?
Well, here's the deal.
Contract?
On D. Smith's deal, it's for 3 years, but they have the ability to make it 5 years.
Right.
So here's the deal. Roger Goodell's getting an extension now. D. Smith's getting his extension. And I don't think that the two are connected in any way, shape, or form, but it's interesting that basically within 24 hours, these deals are going to get done, because these are the two men who are going to be sitting across from each other at that bargaining table, flanked by all their executives and lawyers and smart people. And the future of the league is contingent upon these two guys and what they can or cannot do during the next round of CBA talks, that obviously there's a lot of doom and gloom forecasted. And it's not going to be easy, because relations between the two sides never have been any worse than they are right now. But you're talking about a lot of money. And as you know, Mike, the players are going to have an awfully strong stomach to be able to walk away. It's easy to say now, 4 years out, there's going to be a work stoppage. Let's see what happens when we get close. And there's so much that has to happen between then and now. To even say that right now is just a bit premature in my mind.
Was it surprising to those that D got voted in right now and it didn't have to wait till the election? The elections are every 3 years in March, and Cyrus Mary had been making, wanted to be the guy like was Troy Vincent in 2015 that D. Smith, beat in that, and Cyrus Mary wanted to be in the mix here, and now he won't get the chance to do that. So was it surprising that it didn't even get to the election in March, or no?
Listen, the player reps, the 14 player reps who elected D. Smith, extended D. Smith the other night, always had the ability to do this. Right. And Cyrus Mary was making a lot of noise and really trying to get involved. And I know that that side believes that this is not the voice of all the players. But it doesn't really matter what the voice of all the players is. It matters what the voice of the people who had the power in the room felt, and they felt that they wanted D, and they got that deal done. So that's it. It's D. Smith, and it's Roger Goodell, and it's up to them to figure out the next CBA.
Mike and Schefter here. One more on this, and that would just be what, if any, reaction did you hear from the league, from people on that side of the – and again, these are supposed to be partners. I mean, they're supposed to be working together. The NFL and the Players Association have a partnership. They split revenue in a way that has been collectively bargained in the same way they do in the NBA. Yet, obviously, this feels like these are combatants rather than partners. And they are. They are. What reaction did you hear from people on the NFL side about the re-election of D?
Well, listen, Joe Lockhart, the NFL spokesman, was on a conference call with the reporters yesterday, and his comment was essentially, we congratulate D. Smith and look forward to working with him on the next round of CBA. Now, what they're saying privately, I'm sure, is a little bit different than that particular message. But look, the last deal, from a financial standpoint, the NFL did very well in that.
Right.
So I don't think the NFL is concerned about that. They know that they're going to have a challenge on their hands to get a deal done with D. Smith, and we'll see how the two sides
from the money side of it, the NFL, from the taking care of players, we see the players with the off season started later. Practices have less pads, no two-a-days. So players got what they wanted.
And the coaches hate that.
And the coaches can't stand that, and I understand why. But now the player, I think, focus will shift more to money, which will be a very different
And I've said this. We've talked about Roger Goodell's powers. And in the grand scheme of things, to me, if I'm a player, that is so secondary to something like a fifth-year option on a contract that affects elite players like Khalil Mack and Mike Evans and Odell Beckham and Zach Martin and Aaron Donald. Those guys are beholden to the teams for an extra year. Whereas if you're taken in the second round, those are 4-year contracts. The players in the first round get 4 with the team's ability to pick up a fifth-year option at what is much less than what they would get on the open free agent market. So they came up with a system designed to basically eliminate some of the big salaries going to Jamarcus Russell.
Right.
Sam Bradford at the top of the draft, $50 million guaranteed. And that was the right thing to do. But it's also unfair to penalize somebody who's an elite player when there's a shelf life on your career from hitting the open market and being able to make money. And to me, a fifth-year option is much more important and much more significant to a majority of players than whether Roger Goodell has power or not.
That wouldn't even be second on my list.
Correct.
That'd be way down.
Way down.
Agree.
The thing, however, is that the people who are negotiating this deal, the active players don't really have that as a concern anymore. By the time we get to this, Odell Beckham, we're talking about rookie contracts, which don't affect, by definition, anyone who's already in the Players Association.
But it's an issue of what's right.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Well,
it's the reason Odell doesn't have a new deal. It's the reason Donald doesn't have a new deal.
In 3 years, when this is being negotiated, there will be another group of players that will have been going through this next year and the year after and the year after. So,
but there will be no pending rookies. There will be no one for whom this will actually matter in the room making these decisions.
No,
this is something that only affects someone who is going to become a first-round draft pick.
But that's okay when they're having these conversation 5 years ago.
Yeah, the rookie
it
wage
was the same
scale.
conversation.
Yeah, there was no rookies in the room, and they had the rookie wage scale. So I mean, they don't have to be the
rookie wage scale, I think, benefited the they thought was going to benefit the veterans. They're going to take some some of that money and recycle it to us. And what actually wound up
No, I
happening
get
is
it, but the
all
point
the middle
is
class
they
lost
fought
their
for that
jobs.
without having rookies in the room. I mean,
But I think that was damaging to they were taking money away from the rookies. This is something that would be empowering first-round picks to be able to get more money more quickly. Do you understand what I'm saying?
But not as rookies. They would be getting after their third year.
Rookie wages still have been limited. We're talking about the players who, after a period of time in the NFL, who shine and have excelled, get paid. That's what we're talking about.
But would that rule be changed retroactively, like all of a sudden?
Oh, no.
That's what I mean. So we're debating nothing here. I understand what I mean. I may not be making it clear. We got a bunch of on-the-field stuff to get to with Schefter as well, so let's take a quick break on that. Mike Schefter's in our studio talking football with you. Paul Finebaum still to come this morning. One of the more interesting games on the schedule this weekend to me, Schefter, is Tampa Bay at Minnesota. We've only seen one game from the Bucs, and they look spectacular. Now they go to Minnesota, where the Vikings opened up really strong on that Monday night, and then in something of a surprise, they lose Bradford week 2, and we don't know what the situation is with him. We're hoping that you do. What are you hearing about Sam Bradford?
Mike Zimmer intimated that this is a decision that's going to go up to game time. He was limited in practice yesterday. They don't know whether he's going to be able to play on Sunday. Obviously, they want to see how the knee recovers. He's been undergoing a lot of treatment this week. It's not an issue of whether he can go out there and throw. There were some clips out there on social media of him throwing the football. We know he can do that. The question is, how is that twice surgically repaired knee that's had 2 ACL tears, that's been reconstructed, how is that knee going to hold up? And the injury occurred on a non-contact play. I don't think he ever got close to playing last week. I think they knew that all along, and they said it was going to be a game-time decision. And whenever they say it's a game-time decision, more often than not, usually they're not going to play the guy. They decide not to play him. They're hoping that he can make it back. I think they're preparing as if Case Keenum may be the guy this week because there's a big question. And they say they're going to take this up to game time. Look, they got to have Sam Bradford healthy and right, or that's going to be a big problem for that team.
And then we continue with the Andrew Luck situation where early in the weeks he's just out. It seems, Schefter, that he is a long way away. And I know they didn't put him on the PUP list, which would mean he'd have to miss the 6 weeks. But, boy, it doesn't seem
you know what?
like
Let me
he's
say
around,
this.
unless we don't know what's going on in practice.
Look, there's a team. Let's keep this in mind. There's a team that didn't have a lot of roster depth. Okay, they claimed 5 players on the final cutdown. So the bottom part of their roster was disposable, largely. And so for them to keep Sam Bradford on the roster as a symbolic gesture, to give these players hope, to give that community something to think about.
Luck, Andrew Luck.
What did I say?
You said Bradford.
Luck.
We know what you meant. Yeah.
Okay. To keep him on the roster, just from a mental standpoint, a morale standpoint, may have been worth it to them, particularly when there's a question about when he's going to be back. Look, as you mentioned, they've already said Luck is out. So if they rule him out on Monday and he's not practicing again this week, then I think it's safe for us right now to say we don't think he's playing next week in week 4 against Seattle. Now we're at week 5, so if you kept him on PUP, he was going to miss 6 games anyway.
Right.
And now you get to wonder if they're sitting there with a poor record at a certain point, what's the sense of even bringing him back? Right. Now, they have insisted that he's going to play this year. So we'll take them at their word. But I don't know that they've been completely accurate with their forecast for Andrew Luck because we've been told that he was going to be ready early on, going to be ready to go, might miss the beginning of the season. Nothing has seemed to match up. Yeah. And all we can go by the facts right now, we're 3 weeks in. He's not practicing, he's not playing, and it doesn't look like he's going to do that anytime soon.
And there's one more we wanted from you today, and that is the situation with Lawrence Timmons, which, the reporting got kind of weird. You've been on top of it. Timmons disappeared from his teammates, and then he wanted to come back and play. They wouldn't let him play. He's suspended. We don't know how long. What do we know about the situation with Timmons in Miami?
Well, first of all, basically they filed a missing persons report on Saturday because they had no idea where he was. That's not the way you want to head into the start of your regular season with your star linebacker, your big free agent acquisition, basically going missing. Now, he showed up early Sunday morning, and apparently he wanted to play. They sent him home. So he spent the early part of this week, and we didn't hear what happened with it, meeting with doctors. Gives you an idea of where this is at. There's some questions and concern about his well-being at this point in time. It's also devolved right now, as it always does, into a money issue, because the Dolphins paid him a lot of money, and there's a lot of money at stake, and they don't feel like they are entitled to have to pay him the money that they already have invested in him. So I think we're going to see these two sides fight over the money that's involved here, and I think that his future in Miami is at best in question, tenuous, unlikely. My own personal sense is he'll never play for that team again.
Really?
Correct.
It's amazing. Was in Pittsburgh for the years. I think it was a 2-year deal he signed. Was it not for Miami? I believe it was. But, I mean, they expected a lot out of this guy. So much now.
They were counting on him.
Absolutely goes AWOL. And so much so now they're not, that they traded for Stephon Anthony to fill that spot.
All right, he's Adam Schefter, and he's with us here and all the Inside Again, the big story today that the deal is being papered. Roger Goodell will get that extension. Do you think there was significant opposition? I mean, was there ever any real question?
I think all along that the owner, they were never going to get enough owners to shoot it down and block him. But there were various points, like Jerry Jones wanting to see if there could be somebody else that could be brought in there for that job. It just never got to that point.
That would have been really interesting. Where does he go from there? And maybe more to the point, who would be the person who would come in next if they were to make the replacement? It turns out we won't have to know. All right, Shefty, always with the very latest. Great to see you as always. Thank you. Paul Finebaum is on the way next. Stay there. Mike and Mike.
First time skydiving?
Sure is.
Okay, you just open the door like this and you jump. Wait.
Should we be like in tandem?
Tandem? That's a great idea.
Are you a certified instructor?
No, but I love parachutes and I love people. Here we go.
You wouldn't take chances with an uncertified skydiving instructor. Don't do it with your finances. Find a certified financial planner professional today at letsmakeaplan.org. CFP. Work with the highest standard.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, we help keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
We are busy morning on this Thursday. Presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guest, like Paul Finebaum on the Shell Pennzoil Performance side, he'll join us in a moment. Obviously, a lot of conversation about safety today. Usually it's player safety in football. Today it's fan safety in baseball. I hate the thought that you have to have an event like this for something to be done. It should have been done. We were talking about it last year and the year before, and it's
that's
been
the
talked
thing.
about regularly.
Yeah, this isn't something that happened and went, oh, my God, wow, we didn't see anything like this coming. We need to do something. This has been talked about, to your point. We talked about it and then kind of shelved. Talked about it and shelved. Some, maybe a minor league park did something. We know in Japan they've done some of this, but it never really grabbed hold to be done everywhere. And again, don't think this is a Manfred thing where he can just put his hand up and say everybody put a net up. It doesn't work that way. So I'll be really interested, I'm sure, with a lot of other people to see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, so we'll continue talking about that, but we have a lot of matters to get to with Mr. Finebaum from the Paul Finebaum Show, and he joins us every week, and he's with us right now. Good morning, Paul Finebaum.
Greeny, I've got to tell you, a friend of mine just texted me, and he said, would you please tell Mike Greenberg to pronounce your name correctly? And I had to text the guy back and say that Mike Greenberg pronounces my name correctly. I pronounce it incorrectly.
See, there you go.
Now, here's this has come up many times before. I'm not capable of seeing the spelling of your name and not saying Finebaum. I'm just not capable of it.
The first time I ever, long story short, when I was a kid, I would pronounce my name Finebaum because my parents were from New York. And the teacher would say, okay, thank you, Finebaum. So finally, after about the third grade, I gave up. And it's only when I'm in New York seeing relatives that they pronounce it correctly, or when I'm on Mike and Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I'm not capable.
Long story short, it's a German name. It means fine tree, which is Baum is tree in German. So you are correct. I am wrong. Sue me if I play too long.
No, I keep trying to. I say it. I do the best I can. It's pronounced as though the second syllable is B-O-M-B, right?
No, that's a Southern thing. We like bombs.
Yeah. Which is all good. Finebaum. I mean, I understand.
So between his name and Wojnarowski.
No. Well, Woj, I just can't say it for whatever reason. I just can't say it.
Well, you call him Woj. Why don't you call once say fine?
What should I, Paul? What do you have a people nickname, who know you well? Yeah.
I have never had a nickname. I've never had anything. So
I've heard you call things that we can't say on air, but I don't think that. Yeah.
Yeah, no. There's usually like an ing before my name.
Gotcha. All right, Paul Finebaum is with us here. That sounded pretty good there. I thought
there you go.
Got
I
that.
don't know. I like Baum better.
Okay, for the longest time now, Paul, it feels as though Alabama has just owned college football, and there's no reason to think that they don't still, and that they won't be there at the end again this year and maybe win the whole thing. I feel like with the couple of weeks that we've seen with the Auburn game and now this past week with the nationally televised Louisville game, there's a whole lot of Clemson is the new Alabama kind of conversation going on out there. I hear a little bit of laughter. What is your reaction?
Well, no, I'm laughing because it's hard for some people in the South, in the SEC country, to admit that, but right now, you have three programs in this country that are on the same level. Ohio State may still be there. We'll find out later. But Clemson and Alabama are like what we see in the NBA Finals every year with Golden State and Cleveland. And give Dabo Swinney credit. No one has taken a program farther against all odds than he has. And the irony is that he went to Alabama and he has replicated what they do down there. And he's done it fairly close to what Nick Saban. Not quite. I still think they may be a hair below, although Clemson fans would argue. But should they meet again and should Dabo win this time, that would be a major game changer.
We've asked this question a few times. We bring it up a lot, like with the UConn women, but that's a single team in college basketball. If these two teams meet again, that's the old adage, okay, it's just these two teams for 3 years. Is that bad for college football?
I don't think it's bad, although you guys have been there the last couple of years. It is still a regional matchup, and I think the nation craves for something a little bigger and broader, even if Clemson and Alabama are the two best teams in the country. I mean, personally, I'd rather see Urban Meyer and Ohio State. I think it broadens the scope of college football. I'm a fan of college football, but these schools are fairly close to each other. But if they're the two best, then it's not my decision to stand in the way and say you can't come. But I don't know. I'm not sitting around yearning for another matchup. And by the way, not that anybody needs to make this point here, but we're only 3 games into it. I think we're giving maybe we're putting Clemson in the finals a little bit early here.
Yeah, I mean, just the defense. I was tweeting about it this weekend, and I had 1 million people immediately tweeting back at me. I'll defer to your expertise on this, because I tweeted how incredibly impressed I was by their defense against Lamar Jackson in Louisville, and then I immediately get, what the world is like. I get people telling me, well, no, Louisville stinks. So I said, well, how about what they did to Auburn the week before? And then I heard back, well, no, Auburn stinks. Does Auburn stink? I mean, you tell me.
Yeah, Auburn may stink, but listen, that was still an amazing performance. I talked to Danny Sheridan yesterday, the odds maker, and he said if they met right now in Atlanta and on a neutral site, Alabama would be a 2-point favorite. That's significantly less than last year when Alabama was about a touchdown favorite. So at least the street or Vegas has renewed respect for Clemson. And again, that may sound silly considering they are the reigning champion. But what's so interesting is they won the game, and then the next day when all the way too early polls came out for this season, Alabama was already back in number 1, and they followed that up by being the preseason. And that's because of Deshaun Watson leaving. But Brian is really good. I don't think he's Deshaun Watson yet, even though Deshaun Watson says he is. But they still have some challenges, and they have to head to Florida State later in the season. And I know we have just completely written FSU off without Francois, and I talked to Jimbo about it yesterday. They will have gone 21 days between games, but I don't think they are completely dead yet.
Yeah, I heard him on your show talking about you can only practice so much. You got to get into a game situation, and through obviously no fault of their own, it's been a horrible situation down there. Sometimes you count teams out. Sometimes teams come into the mix. And are we getting that possibly in Mississippi State? I don't think it's unbelievably shocking they beat LSU, but it is a little more shocking the way they dismantled them. And now they take on Georgia. We've been looking really good running the ball, certainly in that fast defense. And then after that, they have Auburn, which we all don't think as much of as maybe others do. And then you have to wait till probably Alabama in November. But is this Mississippi State? Are they on your radar?
Well, yeah, I was down there last weekend, and you could feel it. That was a long time coming game, and LSU was just poorly prepared. The discipline on the LSU side was atrocious, bringing all kinds of conversations about Ed Orgeron before he completed his 3rd week as the permanent head coach. But I don't think Mississippi State Mike, will get through the next 2 weeks. I think, frankly, they would be. They wouldn't be, but I would think they would be happy with a split. I think they'll lose Saturday night. I really believe Georgia is better than we're giving them credit for. So, but again, if State can survive this, this is reminding some people of 2014 when this little-known quarterback named Dak Prescott led them to the #1 ranking in the season for 7 weeks.
Mike and Mike, Paul Finebaum is with us here, brought to you by Goodyear Tires, as hardworking as college football's most blimp-worthy athletes. Goodyear, the official sponsor of the college football playoff. I asked this next question somewhat hesitantly because I don't want everyone calling into your show and yelling and screaming about me.
Oh, I would. I'd love it.
I am merely passing along what some of the conventional wisdom seems to be, and that is that for many, many years now, the SEC has been the best conference in college football, and that right now Alabama is propping it up, and that when you get past Alabama, there is a major drop-off, and that they are by no means the best conference in college football right now. If one were to make that statement, would it be accurate?
I think our sound just went out here. I did not hear the question. Greeny, it is accurate. And, it's time to tell the truth down here. The SEC won 6 straight national championships and owned college football, but it doesn't anymore. And I really believe it's not simple, but I think you have to look at the coaching. You go back 10 years ago, Urban Meyer was winning championships at Florida. Like him or not, Bobby Petrino was at Arkansas. Spurrier was in the league. You really had quality coaching. Les Miles was winning a national championship. And I think the coaching hires have been very questionable. A lot of recycled coaches, a lot of Nick Saban disciples. Some have worked out, some haven't. And I think there is a coaching crisis right now in the SEC. It does not compare to the upper echelon of the Big Ten, the ACC, or even the Pac-12. And I still think if you show up in late April on draft day, you're going to see more SEC players selected, but it doesn't translate on the field, and I think it's because of the head coaching position.
Isn't that interesting, Mike? So if the best talent is still down there, and yet they don't have the best teams, does that suggest they're not being the players are being developed, but they're for whatever reason it's not translating on the field?
Well, look at LSU. They had Beckham a couple of years ago. They had Fournette. They didn't do that much with first-round draft choices on the team, and they had plenty of others on the defensive side of the ball. And it's just now Les Miles managed to get less out of talent than anyone the last couple of years, but I think it goes across the board now. And then you have Dan Mullen on the other side, who is a very underrated coach who helped develop Dak. He's done it with Tebow and Alex Smith, and now he's doing it with Nick Fitzgerald. So, I mean, there are some bright spots, but there are some really average to terrible coaching jobs being done in this conference right now.
And for what it's worth, over the last 2 years, the SEC is 16-20 against non-conference Power 5 opponents. The Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big Ten all have a better record in such games.
So in your mind, Paul, how deep is the SEC of forgetting the rankings of top 20, how many SEC teams would you say these could be national power teams?
1. Maybe 2. I think Georgia has an outside shot, and I'm not reading all that much into the win in South Bend. But before the season, we thought maybe Auburn, and again, maybe something can change. But it's really distressing. And what's really interesting, the fan bases across the board are just downright angry. Kentucky fans aren't upset. They're undefeated right now. Vanderbilt fans are okay, and State fans. But we had more calls from Florida fans this week, just really wanting to throw Jim McElwain over the top. And that came after a dramatic win over Tennessee. There are just a lot of these fans just don't think they have the right coach. Someone's in trouble. We know that. Bielema hasn't performed that well. Butch Jones is on and off the hot seat in Knoxville. Malzahn is on and off the hot seat at Auburn. So, I mean, these are, and I mentioned McElwain, these are very prominent coaches in a league, and a lot of people around the country are going, why are they prominent? What have they done? And it's a really good question.
All right, it's Paul Finebaum. Very interesting stuff here at a time maybe of a little bit of transition for what has been the power conference in college football for what feels like a very long time. Paul, thank you. I'll continue working on the last name. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, guys. Talk next week.
I was trying to think. There's someone else whose name I was always getting wrong. Forget about Woj, because I just can't, for whatever reason, can't say his name. But there's someone else, for lack of a better word, who has a Jewish-sounding last name that I always pronounce that way, and they don't, and I was always corrected on it. Now it's just jumped out of my head who it was. But this was something that
I don't know it.
It's going to come to me at some point. Here, it'll come to me.
It'll come to you at some point.
But I just can't. Like Finebaum is Finebaum, right? I mean, that's just, to me, that's just how you say his name. Well, I mean, you can say, look, you can pronounce anything any way you want.
Right.
I remember one year the
Bears.
Well,
I mean, you should pronounce things the way they want you to pronounce them, or the way they think their name is.
Okay, so you tell me. The Bears drafted a player one year when I was covering them. He spelled his name Octis. And we asked him, how do you pronounce that? And he said, Otis. So there was a silent C in his name. Well, I mean, can you do that? Are you allowed to just put a like if I said to you,
let me quickly clue you in on something.
Yeah,
he didn't do it.
No, I understand.
Okay,
that.
I mean, he didn't.
But just hear me out.
Okay.
If I said to you, my name is spelled Fred, I pronounce it George. Is that okay? No, it's not. At some point, there are limitations.
Like you've done
for you've
done for 18 years, you go too far. Okay,
it's Finebaum.
You go too far.
What do you want from me?
It's Finebaum.
It's Finebaum.
Baum.
It just is. Listen, Golic, it's Finebaum.
Is it November 17th yet?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to convince you of this one before I go. You're not allowed to take a name that Jewish and not pronounce it that way.
If the man has a silent C, then the man has a silent C. Okay?
He has a right to exactly.
He has a right to a silent C.
His mama named him Finebaum. I'm going to call him Finebaum. That's all there is to it. Okay, Mike and Mike. By the way, our next top-ranked boxing title fight is tomorrow.
Okay.
It's Oscar Valdez putting his WBO featherweight title on the line against Genesis Cervania. The undercard start at 7:30 Eastern. The main event is 10:30 Eastern, live on ESPN, ESPN Deportes, and the ESPN app. I got an email here, another email from Chris Mortensen.
Okay.
I know who this is from. Mort, if you're listening, send another note saying, do you want me to identify who it's from or not? Because he didn't say so. He said...
Make sure you put the name the right way, because Greeny will mispronounce it.
No, but you'll know who it is. But anyway, Mort said he got a call from someone who said to him, please pass this along to the fellas, meaning you and me.
Okay.
And he agrees with you. And he's someone that you know. I don't want to say his name unless...
He agrees with me. I want to hear it then.
He said, I absolutely agree with Golic on projecting players into the NFL and that speed is a non-factor for a tackle and can extend to the interior. Tell those guys the absolute critical factors for offensive linemen are, number one, size. If not big enough, they can't play. Number two, strength. If not strong enough, they can't play. Number three, quickness. Secondarily, factors you want that are not physical are, number one, football intelligence. Number two, enjoy the grind. Number three, weight room commitment. And number four, toughness. So size, strength, and then quickness. And that's from someone who had an extraordinarily successful career in football evaluating talent.
Yeah, listen, I would agree with that. Now size, listen, I'm not going to lose my mind on size, because we've seen guys not fit the mold and still succeed at different positions, but there certainly is some validity to that, without question, especially on the offensive line. You do need some size and girth to you, no doubt about it. I'll say it. I every time I watch the combine, I lose my mind at the 40-yard dash. Stop at the 10. I don't care what they jump, how high, and I don't care how far they jump. How do they work out? What kind of commitment do they have in the weight room? The bench press to me is fine for a test. The bench press, to me, doesn't do a whole lot on the field. I go more the incline. That's more how your body level is on an incline than on a bench press. But certainly, if you can incline a lot of times you can bench a lot, depending on shoulder injuries and the such. And I do go on toughness, especially on that interior. My tackles need to have hands like boxers and feet like dancers. Okay, they don't need the straight ahead speed and all that. I drives me nuts. Good hands, good feet. Stay in front of your man, extend, don't let him into your body. That's what you're looking for. And interior, you need the grind guys. You need the guys that will block you, that will kick you, that will step on you, that won't help you up or go back to the huddle and knee on the way to it. Sorry if that sounds offensive, but that's the way I want them. Not to say they're all that way, but that's what you want to see. And you all need to be you need to be versatile as well. If you're a guard and you're a really good guard, make sure you know how to snap the ball. If you can play left tackle, play right tackle. You know, we can see tackles go inside. To see tackles that can move in, it's difficult to be inside and move out. It takes a little more. When I say a better athlete to play tackle, that doesn't mean faster and jump higher and all those measurables. It means you're a better athlete at playing the offensive line position as far as hands and feet are concerned, especially with the speed rushers.
Can I ask you a question?
Ask.
All kidding aside, because I understand what you're saying, and it certainly sounds like it makes sense to me, and obviously you know 1,000 times more about this than I do. But they do these things at the Combine, and they're not doing it for their health.
Listen,
they're not doing it because they feel it's a waste of time.
Here's why.
There's obviously a reason.
Here's one of the reasons they do it. And Bill Polian has said this, because Bill and I will disagree to some regard on the validity of needing all that. Bill basically puts it in a box and says the successful ones fit in this box. That doesn't mean they all fit in this box, but the successful ones usually fit in this box of parameters of a 40 dash at least this fast to this slow, a jump of this high to this high. So there's a box they fit in. And I get that, again, to a point. There's a point I'd like to see that. But, man, for me, if I never saw the Combine, it wouldn't make one bit of difference to me. I would love, whenever I'm done with all this, I would love to be a scout. I would just love to go out and scout because I really feel like I can watch somebody play. I can look at their tape at any position because I think I know what it would take for those positions of what you need to look like and how you need to move. And I would love to be able to do that. And part of it, I'm sorry, is just not a 40-yard dash or how high you can jump. It still blows my mind that a guy does a broad jump and you go, oh, my God, he went 11 feet, he's up in the first round. I don't get it. Again, what I said that should do is make you go back and watch more tape on that person to see if on the football field that translates. So I get what Bill's saying, and you're absolutely right. They do it for a reason because there's so many people that you want some standards, you want some markers. My point is be careful of how much you put on those markers. I get having the markers, but just be careful of when you make your lists that the markers aren't that high on the list, and the markers are so, okay, let me put some extra emphasis on the person and make sure they have the skills that translate to the next level.
We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. I have a lot of people reacting to our pronunciation conversation and all bringing up the name Brett Favre.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how you can have a word that is spelled F-A-V-R-E and pronounce it Favre, it still doesn't make sense.
That's Ben Stiller.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, if for those of you who know the movie Something About Mary, and Brett Favre. And it took a long time when he first came into the league that everyone didn't think his name was Brett Favre. And, I mean, he became very good.
Because he wasn't a star right away, and if you played against him, they may not remember you played against him because nobody knew who he was when you played against him.
And then other people can immediately produce a photo of you playing against him. Listen, of the two of us, there was only one of us who had a chance to have played against Brett Favre.
He wasn't Brett Favre then. He was still Favre then, okay? Favre.
It's Finebaum. I don't care what anybody says.
Finebaum.
All right, we're Mike and Mike. Coming up next, are we on the verge of having a major trade in a major sport?
Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo! Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
I love talking about breaking down players. I'm so happy that email from Mort about, the person that's saying what they look for in old linemen. I just love that stuff. I just love looking for that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm very interested in all these people with the pronunciations of names. That to me is much more interesting. And there's a lot of interesting ones here. Like, for example, MG totally agrees with me with the way you pronounce Finebaum. That's how it's spelled. It's not rocket science. A lot of people are bringing up Mike Krzyzewski's name and wondering if that looks as though it is spelled that way. Like, when he first became famous, Mike Krzyzewski, his first championship team, 1986, was my freshman year of college. And so we didn't know who he was. I mean, their team, they went unbeaten that year, and they were unbelievable. They went all the way to the final game, wound up losing. And I remember he became Coach K because no one knew how to spell it, how to say his name.
Right.
And certainly the last thing you would guess is Krzyzewski. Looking at it, that doesn't look like Krzyzewski.
What are you people doing? Finebaum says his name is pronounced Finebaum. You don't change the pronunciation of his man's name because you think it's spelled wrong or spelled the way you're pronouncing it. You don't get to choose how you pronounce somebody else's name. You can't just for 18 years have called me Golic, Golic, when my name was pronounced Golic. I would have kept correcting you until I punched you. You can't just make up, well, no. That's clearly Golic, and you'll be called Golic for the rest of your days. It's Golic. But you can't just change how you pronounce someone's name.
But isn't there some limit on this?
No.
I'm not suggesting that Paul necessarily crosses the line.
You went too far when you said F-R-E-D isn't George. Well, no, I know that. But the example you gave, there was a Chicago Bear. This is true. You weren't making
Otis
this up?
Polk, no.
O-C-T-I-S.
Right.
And you guys asked him how you pronounce it.
He was not a first-round pick. I forget what
he
round
said
he
Otis.
was drafted in.
Okay.
But he comes for the first time. I'm one of the reporters. Right. And he was asked, how do you pronounce, because it might have been O-C-T-U-S now that I think about it. And I mean, I assumed it was Octus.
Okay.
Which is a fascinating name.
I get it. So you asked him, and what did he say?
He said it's Otis.
So is that the only person that ever has a silent letter in his name?
A silent C?
Doesn't matter. It's still silent, and that's how what he wants to be called. You call the man Otis. Man wants to be called Otis, you call him Otis.
All right, so let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
And if you just put a C in the middle of your name right now, could you do that? Could you say, you know what, I've decided I'm just going to spell my name with a silent P in it?
He didn't decide anything. Otis didn't decide anything. This was a name he was given.
These are the things that keep me up at night. Just thinking about these sorts of things. Here's a guy, Tom Braun, who says, my name is pronounced Brown. B-R-A-U-N is the spelling of his name. And he says, my name is pronounced Brown like the color.
Not Braun.
Not Braun, like Lloyd Braun.
Right.
Why can't it be more like Lloyd Braun? To me, does this look to you like B-R-A-U-N? Shouldn't that be Braun?
It should be what he asked it to be pronounced.
Right, do you just get to choose that no matter what?
If that's the way he was raised, it's not like he made it up right now. It's probably when he was growing up. It was Brown. That's
How
what
about
he was
Tom Thibodeau? How did he become Tibbs? Everyone is sending us notes. How does Tom Thibodeau become Tibbs?
Instead of Thibs, it's
Instead
Tibbs.
of Thibs.
Well, that's a nickname. That's a whole different thing. It's a whole different animal.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you were to spell his nickname, you'd spell it with an H, right? You'd spell it T-H-I-B-S.
I'm amazed that you feel that you have the audacity to not listen to somebody how they say their name, and you want to choose to say it there. It's Finebaum. It's Finebaum. Like B-O-M-B. It's bomb, and you go boom, or whatever the hell you
I
do.
Don't do anything of
you
the
don't
kind.
do it like it's supposed to be done, and I don't understand why. I respect the man enough to call him Finebaum.
I'm going to say this right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
If it's spelled Baum, I'm going to call it Baum. It's just that simple. Mike and Mike reminding you, if you missed anything on this program, including Paul Finebaum, who was with us earlier in this hour, or Adam Schefter in hour number 3, or anything else we've had today, it's a good time to remind you can listen to all 4 hours of Mike and Mike on demand in the ESPN app. You can also subscribe to the Best of Mike and Mike podcast, all available in the Listen tab of the ESPN app. All right, in the midst of all of this, I came across something in the notes yesterday that just sort of made me stop and say, what? It's from Frank Isola, New York Daily News. You see him on Around the Horn and a million other ESPN shows covering basketball, talking about Carmelo Anthony and the hope that he will be traded by Monday. Quote, Anthony's camp is cautiously optimistic. Let me say that again. Cautiously optimistic that a deal will be struck before Monday, and trying not to think about the potential media circus that will take place if Carmelo is still with the Knicks. Bear in mind, they open their training camp on Monday. 2 weeks ago, Carmelo's wife, Lala, said the family thought a trade would have been completed by now. Mentally, Carmelo and his family have moved on to Houston. Reality is another story. Hopefully, Mills and Perry, which is the GM and president of the Knicks now, will have the right answers when they address the media on Friday, because the Carmelo issue isn't going away until he goes away. So the notion that Carmelo could be traded by Monday, I will tell you, I didn't see that one coming.
No, and our own Adrian Wojnarowski basically texted us when we were talking about this earlier, and not basically, he did, and said there's been no talks between these two teams as of late. So we'll see what happens. Listen, my thought on this is a sport where you see trades happen, and I understand it's a high-profile guy. We certainly went through that with Kyrie this just a little bit ago. But I guess my thought is, okay, let's see what happens. It's not like if it doesn't happen, we're going to wonder what goes on. He's going to play for the Knicks, and your mentality is back with the Knicks, even though you say you've checked out already. It doesn't mean you're not going to be a professional and play. Remember, the biggest hindrance or speed bump there was the relationship between him and Phil Jackson, who's no longer there.
Right.
Sitting in Montana with his feet up on the fence, enjoying whatever. So
and you mean that literally?
I absolutely mean that literally. So it surprised me. But will it stun me if nothing happens and he's a Knick? No, and that'll be fine. I mean, I know this will keep hanging there, but to me, I wouldn't expect it to interfere with games or his play.
No, I mean, it didn't last year either. And to whatever degree, to your point, that it was a distraction, it can't, or is a distraction.
Can't be any more.
It can't be any worse than it was a year ago.
No.
When the president of the team is putting out cryptic tweets that are insulting him or criticizing him at minimum, and then not ever addressing them, and Carmelo was the one who was left addressing them. Now, I've said before, Carmelo Anthony is a flawed superstar. There are things about him over the course of time to criticize if you want to, but he handled last year so ridiculously well. It's remarkable, but it is in everyone's best interest for him to go. And I said it before when we had this conversation earlier this morning. I'll say it again. I continue to believe that Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Chris Paul, and Dwayne Wade will wind up on the same team next year. Now, what team will that be? I believe it's going to be the Lakers, because I just don't know why everyone would be saying LeBron is going to the Lakers if there wasn't anything to it. And you see all these little tiny reports about him and his wife visiting a school and whatever the case may be. I continue to think that's what's going to happen with LeBron, and if that's the case, it makes sense. It makes sense that that's a place that all four of those guys might want to go.
Not happening. Quit. You want it to happen so badly.
None of them will go together?
We didn't say that.
Who goes? How many of them? I mean, Melo will have the ability to go where he wants. Paul will have the ability to go where he wants. Wade will have the ability to go where he wants. And LeBron will have the ability to go where he wants.
They all can, yeah.
So they can all go wherever they want. So how many of them will wind up together?
That I don't know. I mean, we could obviously...
The over-under is 1.5. Oh, way over.
I could do over on that.
2.5. 3.5.
It's not going to be 4. Not going to be 4.
Well, the over-under can't be 4. The over-under
No, I said it's not going to be all 4 of them.
I'll go. If you give me the over-under of 3.5, I'll go over.
Something.
We'll see.
Stugotz wants to bet me too in this. I'll bet anybody on this one.
So he's on my side?
Yes,
he believes it too. I'm telling you right now, that's going to happen. People just don't get it. Like Nick Franklin says, Schefter is a silent C. No, it's not. When the letters SCH are placed together, they are pronounced with that sh sound.
Yeah, shh.
That's appropriate. It's an appropriate pronunciation.
But if there was no C, it would be pronounced the same way.
Correct, but I mean, so it's an irrelevant C, but it is
it's irrelevant, but it's not a silent C?
It's not a silent C. I mean, that's how that word is pronounced. Like Travis over there, he said, my name isn't pronounced Travis. For now, we're going to call him T. Ravis. I mean, you can do things you want if you want to, but it doesn't mean that it's okay.
No, it doesn't.
As Chris Rock once famously said, you can drive a car with your feet if you want to. It doesn't make it a good idea. So we're getting a lot of different people complaining or explaining things. Like, for example, on Tom Thibodeau. He says Thibodeau is shortened to Tibbs because in French, you typically don't pronounce the H. But then why isn't it Thibodeau? It never made sense to me that it was Thibodeau and Tibbs. It should either be Thibodeau and Tibbs.
I always got confused
Thibodeau
with
and Thibs.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you.
You know what it is? It's infuriating.
But I'm going to call it how it's being called. And I'm going to say Paul Finebaum.
See, some people pronounce things the way they are and ask why. I pronounce things the way they should be and ask why not. That's the Robert F. Kennedy and I have that kind of similarity in that regard. So I'm looking at a couple of these other ones here, and there's a ton of tweets like this that are agreeing with me. They're wondering how we can be having this conversation.
I can't agree with you. You can't change the pronunciation of somebody's name. If a person grows up and it's B-R-A-U-N, but all his life it's been pronounced, and he was told it's pronounced Brown, you can't call him Braun. And then when he says it's Brown, you can't say, no, your name is, you're wrong. You're wrong in how you're pronouncing your own name.
I think
pronounce
you can.
it the way they want it to be pronounced.
Well, I mean, I will say once again that where's the line, to use your phrase, right? Where's the line?
You'll know the line when you see it.
All right, you can spell anything any way you want to and then pronounce it any way you want to. So if you're having another child right now and you wanted to, you could name the child Violet, but spell it with a P in it for no reason at all.
Yes.
Just because you feel like
yes.
it. No, that's stupid.
But yet it's
that's
being
like
done.
The first step
it's
before
being
total
done.
anarchy and chaos. That is
the step.
Correct.
That's the step.
That's the line
That's
from
it.
which we cannot come back. That's when we've lost things completely. That's what I have to say. Okay.
I have no idea.
I've got a great stat for you here. Bubba put together, not Bubba, Hembo put together a very nice.
Bubba didn't put together anything but alcohol and food.
Yeah, Bubba Bubba in and of himself is not put together.
No.
But anyway, Hembo put together some nerd notes on the game tonight, 49ers Rams.
Uh-huh.
But the single best stat about the game tonight is not in the nerd notes.
It's not.
So do you want it before the nerd notes or after the nerd notes?
Oh, let's end it on that. Give us a nerd note.
Then let me start first of all with nerd notes.
Nerd alert! Nerd! Nerd! Nerd!
News you didn't even know you needed or even want.
Well, if I was you, I'd do something about it.
These are Mike and Mike's Nerd Notes.
The Nerd Notes are brought to you by Dell. Need help finding the right Dell PCs with Intel Core processors for your business? Call 877-BUY-DELL. Talk to a Dell small business tech advisor. We have the 49ers and the Rams tonight kicking off the NFL weekend.
Nerd alert!
And it features two head coaches who have yet to reach 40 years old. Elias, in fact, tells us they are a combined 25,359 days old. It's the third youngest head coaching matchup in the Super Bowl era. But, Mike, you can tell us there's more than that.
The youngest is 1992, and they did it twice. So while this matchup is actually the second duo, because the first two were the same two guys, Bill Cowher, David Shula, 1992. They met twice that year.
So I would argue that this is the second youngest head coaching matchup in the Super Bowl era.
Yes.
If the other two guys matched up twice,
right,
and they were younger both times, it's still just one head coaching matchup.
I agree.
So to me, this is the second. Call Elias and tell them that they have that wrong.
This is the third occurrence of it.
Third occurrence.
Occurrence.
Second occasion.
Right.
Like there was one president. We always have the wrong number attached to the presidents because there was one president who was elected twice, not sequentially, and they count him twice. So Donald Trump, they call him the 45th president. He's only the 44th president.
Well, in
only
truth,
been
if you
44 presidents.
But, okay, yeah, you're right.
Right?
You're right.
You can't be.
But the one
Barack
was
Obama was the
43rd
43rd president of the United States. If you make a list of them, there are only 43 names on the list. You can't be the 44th president. Doesn't make any sense.
I can debate that.
But you'd be wrong.
Nerd alert!
Next, Todd Gurley is the first Rams player with 3 touchdowns through 2 team games since Marshall Faulk in 2002. Gurley also leads the Rams with 8 receptions this season.
That's what I love to hear. We know we can run the ball, but leading the Rams with 8 receptions. I love the fact he's catching the ball out of the bag.
You know what my question is?
What's that?
Where the hell was this when we made him the first pick in the draft of our fantasy league last year?
I know.
We took Todd Gurley and he basically fell off the face of the earth, and now he's back to fulfilling his promise.
Alert!
Next, both the Bengals and the 49ers are searching for their first touchdown of the season. Bengals, of course, not playing tonight, but the Niners are. In the Super Bowl era, there's only one team ever to go without a touchdown for their first 3 games of the season. Mike, you see who that was?
Yeah, 76, the Buccaneers. They were an expansion team. In their inaugural season, they went 0-14.
And when asked about their team's execution, their head coach, John McVay, said, I'm in favor of it.
Yep.
So that's how bad they were.
Great lines of all time.
And finally, the ESPN FPI, the Nerds, give the Rams a 56% chance to win on the road, equating to a 2-point favorite. The Rams are a 2.5-point favorite at the Westgate in Vegas. Golic says.
Oh, I'll take the Rams. I like the way they're playing right now, both on both sides of the ball. So I'll take them. 49ers still searching for their way. You know, one of their young stars, or hopefully stars, Reuben Foster's still out. Solomon Thomas still in there. They're building a young team. They don't have their quarterback of the future right now. And I like where the Rams are, so I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yeah, I will go with them as well. We'll make that nerd notes. But again, Hembo kind of left the best note out of it. We told you earlier this morning, the 49ers, remarkably, are 3-0 against going back the last 2 years, 3-0. Is it 2 seasons? How long does that stat go back? They're 3-0 against the Rams and 0-19 against everybody else.
Right.
Which is a remarkable stat. The last time the 49ers beat someone other than the Rams was week 13 of the 2015 season in Chicago. Jay Cutler quarterbacked the Bears that day. He has since retired, unretired, and is now playing for the Dolphins.
He showed his butt on Instagram.
Anquan Bolden was San Francisco's leading receiver in the game. He's retired. Torrey Smith and Alshon Jeffrey opposed each other in that game. They're now teammates in Philadelphia. And San Francisco's head coach was Jim Tomsula, who has since been fired and replaced by Chip Kelly, who has since been fired and replaced by Kyle Shanahan.
Boy, a lot went on in a short amount of time.
That's how long it's been since the Niners have beaten anybody else.
That is amazing.
I got the Rams tonight. Full-scale football Friday tomorrow. Thank you, Golic. It was fun.
First time skydiving?
Sure is.
Okay, you just open the door like this and you jump.
Oh, wait. Should we be like in tandem?
Tandem? That's a great idea.
Are you a certified instructor?
No, but I love parachutes and I love people. Here we go.
You wouldn't take chances with an uncertified skydiving instructor. Don't do it with your finances. Find a certified financial planner professional today at letsmakeaplan.org. CFP. Work with the highest standard.